This series begins by showing a student named Seung Cheon, who attends the most prestigious private high school in South Korea with students from the upper middle class. Some of Seung Cheon's classmates also come from the Golden Spoon Circle, such as Park Jong-gun, who is the son of the Army Chief of Staff, Oh Yo-jin, who is the daughter of a construction company owner, and Kwon Min-ho, the son of the director of Sungbin Hospital. Among all the students at Seung Cheon's school, Hwang Tae-young is known as a student from the richest family. Tae-young is the only son of the president-director of the Dosun Group, with a wealth of more than 300 trillion won. While Seung Cheon himself comes from a poor family because his father is unemployed and his mother is only a maid. He has to work part-time as a food delivery man and convenience store clerk to help pay off his family's debts. When Seung Cheon delivers food to the tutoring center, he will take away study material papers for him to study. At school, he has a best friend named Jin Sog, who comes from a poor family, so they both often become victims of bullying by Jong-gun and his group. One day, Seung Cheon gets the news that Jin Sog and his father died due to debt and that his house will be demolished by the Dosun Group company. Knowing that his best friend had died, Seung Cheon felt sad and regretted his friend's decision to give up on circumstances and choose to end his life. At the funeral, Tae-young's father, Hwang Hyun-do, seemed to come and be the center of attention of reporters, especially after the news circulated that Jin Sog's family house would be evicted by a company owned by Hyun-do. Hyun-do says that his presence is not as a party responsible for the death of Jin Sog's family but as a father who wants to give condolence for the death of his son's friend. He also said that Jin Sog's family's funeral expenses would be borne by the Dosun Group company as a form of his concern. Seung Cheon, who knows this, is very upset because of Hyun-do's attitude toward his best friend's death. After the funeral, Seung Cheon is again bullied by Jong-gun and his gang. Watching from a distance, Tae-young finally approached them to stop the action. It doesn't take long for Jong-gun to leave and throw the money at Seung Cheon, who picks it up. Meanwhile, Tae-young has now returned to his car. In the car, Hyun-do sees him defending Seung Cheon and then reminds him to choose the right friends because he will become the heir to the Dosun Group company. In the afternoon, Seung Cheon returns to work at the convenience store and is seen teaching a new employee named Na Joo-hee how to use the cash register and arranging several items at the convenience store. Seeing Joo-hee, who previously came to the convenience store with a suitcase, he suspects Joo-hee has run away from her house. Elsewhere, Seung Cheon's mother, Soon-hye, works at a diner and sees the news of Jin Sog and his family's death. Suddenly, Seung Cheon's older sister, Seung-ah, calls her mother and informs her that debt collectors are at their house to collect rent. Soon-hye immediately returned home and tried talking to some debt collectors. Meanwhile, Lee Chol, Seung Cheon's father, who is being sought by debt collectors, is hiding in the corner of the house. He is a comic artist who is no longer popular, so his income is unstable. Sometime later, Seung Cheon comes home and tells the debt collectors where his father is hiding. Then he tells his father to take responsibility and solve the debt problem. At night, Lee Chol was seen drawing comics online even though until now, no comic publishers were interested in his comics. At Tae-young's house, he is supposed to study various reports from his father's company, and instead, he admires Lee Chol's comic stories. Sometime later, Hyun-do arrives to check on him. Because of this, Tae-young panicked so much that he had to take medicine to calm himself down. Meanwhile, Hyun-do, who has seen Tae-young's study results, is very disappointed with his son and thinks that he cannot use the time he has to study and show his best abilities. A few days later, Seung Cheon is now seen going to Tae-young's house to hand over Jong-gun's schoolwork, which he usually does. At the same time, at Tae-young's house, some of Seung Cheon's classmates are gathering and enjoying the piano playing of Tae-young's stepmother, Young-sin. On the way, Seung Cheon notices a crystal ball belonging to an old woman selling antiques rolling towards him. While returning the crystal ball, he is attracted by a golden spoon the grandmother was selling for 30,000 won. She explains that the golden spoon can change his fortunes to become a rich man by using the spoon to eat 3 meals at the homes of rich people his age. Even though Seung Cheon doesn't believe what she says, he still buys the golden spoon. When Seung Cheon arrived at Tae-young's house, he was amazed by how luxurious Tae-young's house was, which was spacious and had many servants. Upon arriving at a room, Seung Cheon saw his friends hanging out with Tae-young. Young Shin, who first saw Seung Cheon, was surprised that Tae-young had friends from the lower classes. After Seung Cheon gives Jong-gun an assignment, he deliberately embarrasses Seung Cheon by paying him in front of everyone there. When Seung Cheon is about to leave after finishing his assignment, Tae-young invites him to lunch with them. At lunchtime, Seung Cheon's friends belittled Seung Cheon's father's work, who was an obscure comic artist. However, Tae-young is very interested in his work because he likes reading comics online. Not long after, the food arrives, and Seung Cheon uses the opportunity to prove the truth of the old antique dealer's story about the gold spoon he had bought. The next day, Seung Cheon, who is researching various things about the Dosun Group, sees Tae-young, who looks frustrated while learning about company development and investment. Then Seung Cheon approached him and helped him make a report to give to his father. His friends are surprised by Tae-young's closeness to Seung Cheon, who has a different social status. However, Seung Cheon's intelligence turns out to be able to help him complete the report. Even Hyun-do is impressed by the report his son gave him. Then Tae-young invites Seung Cheon to eat at a fancy restaurant and transfers some money to him as a token of gratitude. On the other hand, Yo-jin worries that Seung Cheon is taking advantage of Tae-young's kindness to make money. However, Tae-young thinks Seung Cheon is sincere about helping him and understands the boundaries of hanging out with him. Yo-jin then talks about Joo-hee, who was expelled from school in England after getting into trouble. At the convenience store, Joo-hee is now seen chatting with Seung Cheon, and she just found out that Seung Cheon attends a prestigious school. He explains that he entered the school through a scholarship. Meanwhile, Joo-hee is forced to lie when he asks about her school. She says that she just got kicked out of her school after fighting with the bullies at her school. Not long after, the convenience store owner tells Seung Cheon that his friend wants to meet him. Upon leaving, he saw Tae-young waiting for him and gave him some money. Seung Cheon thinks that Tae-young is overdoing it, but he forces Seung Cheon not to reject his good intentions as a friend. However, he doesn't think Tae-young wants to be friends with him. At the convenience store, Joo-hee is very surprised after seeing Seung Cheon meet Tae-young, who she knows. After meeting Seung Cheon, Tae-young is back home, and on the way, he feels very jealous of Seung Cheon's life, which is so free because his life has been arranged with various schedules that keep him very busy. Arriving at his room, Tae-young seemed to be missing his biological mother, and he could only stare at a photo of his mother. Meanwhile, Seung Cheon invites Joo-hee to dinner after seeing her complaining about being tired after work. Then they chat, and Joo-hee notices that Seung Cheon is affectionate even though he seems cold. She is also impressed with Seung Cheon, who is trying to help his family's finances. Upon hearing that, Seung Cheon said that he did it for his mother and aspired to be rich so he could be happy and provide an apartment for his mother. The next day, the school announced the list of the best students who could enter the university without taking the test. Seung Cheon is very happy because he is on the list of selected students. Meanwhile, Jong-gun, who was not selected, became very angry and started beating Seung Cheon so that he would give Jong-gun his quota. But he refuses Jong-gun's request, thus making himself even more battered. When Seung Cheon returns to class, he's so angry he throws his bag on the floor. Seeing his golden spoon thrown out of his bag, he remembers something about the gold spoon, so he goes to Tae-young's house to submit an investment report that he's been working on. Seung Cheon, who is still curious about the magic of the spoon, then asks Tae-young to give him a bowl of noodles and argues that he is hungry. But before he could eat the noodles, Hyun-do came, making Tae-young immediately take him out of there. Unbeknownst to Tae-young, Seung Cheon returns to the dining table and eats the noodles using his golden spoon. Suddenly Hyun-do and his wife come and catch Seung Cheon eating the noodles. Seung Cheon, who feels embarrassed, finally apologizes and leaves that house. On the way home, Seung Cheon realizes he is very stupid and throws his gold spoon in the trash because he is disappointed that he didn't get the magic spoon. On the other hand, Jong-gun calls Hyun-do and tells him that Seung Cheon has been helping his son, Tae-young, complete all the company reports that he gave. Hearing this, Hyun-do is so shocked and angry that he calls Tae-young and plans to punish him by sending him to study abroad. As Tae-young no longer wants to experience the events of his childhood in America that traumatized him, he finally begs his father not to send him overseas and is willing to do whatever it takes to make amends. Hyun-do agrees and asks him to kick Seung Cheon out of school. Under pressure from his father, Tae-young and his stepmother come to school the next day and report Seung Cheon's fake blackmail. With fake evidence fabricated, Seung Cheon and his parents are summoned to the principal's office, and he threatens to be expelled from the school. Seung Cheon explains that all the money he received was voluntary by Tae-young. However, Tae-young doesn't defend him, and instead, he cornered Seung Cheon. After the meeting, Lee Chol seemed to kneel in front of Tae-young so that he would forgive his son. On the other hand, that day was Joo-hee's first day of school at that place. Many of her friends were amazed by her entry into the school because she was known as the daughter of a famous TV station entrepreneur. She also seems friendly with Yo-jin, who previously attended the same middle school. Sometime later, Joo-hee, who saw the students crowding around, became curious until she saw Lee Chol kneeling in front of Tae-young to apologize for Seung Cheon's mistake. She feels something is wrong with this incident because she knows that Seung Cheon is a good young man and can't possibly blackmail Tae-young. At night, when it rains, Seung Cheon asks Tae-young to meet by the lake to ask why Tae-young did this to him until Tae-young admits that he had to lie because his father put pressure on him. As it turned out, Seung Cheon had recorded all the conversations between them and planned to provide evidence of the recording to the school. Knowing that Tae-young panics, so he tries to snatch the tape evidence, causing them to fight, and Seung Cheon falls into the lake. Tae-young, who originally intended to call the police for help, suddenly discouraged him because if Seung Cheon was found, he would get into even bigger trouble. Because of that, he decides to leave the place, leaving Seung Cheon, who might drown. At the same time, Seung Cheon begins to lose consciousness but suddenly remembers the chance he had to use the golden spoon, so he tries to save himself by swimming to the lake's surface. He finally survives and rushes off to find the gold spoon he had thrown in the trash. After that, Seung Cheon heads to Tae-yong's house and meets Hyun-do to give him food as a last request before getting kicked out of school. Hyun-do then agreed to this and invited him to eat the food served. Without hesitation, Seung Cheon devours the food using his golden spoon. Meanwhile, Hyun-do only watches him eat from his seat. On the other hand, Tae-yong, who is on his way home, feels guilty about Seung Cheon, so he asks his driver, Moon-ki, to pull over. Then he walks back towards the lake to save Seung Cheon. At Tae-yong's house, Seung Cheon, who has finished his meal, hopes for a miracle from the golden spoon. To be sure, he calls Hyun-do daddy, but Hyun-do has no reaction, so he apologizes and plans to return home, thinking he's failed. After that, Joo-hee comes to Tae-yong's place to ask for an explanation about Seung Cheon's case. Joo-hee, known as Tae-yong's fiancé, was invited in by the maids. Just before Seung Cheon left, suddenly Joo-hee approached him and slapped him while calling Tae-yong's name to him. Hyun-do, who was still there, approached and asked her what his son had been doing. Hearing this, Seung Cheon finally realized that everyone had thought of him as Tae-yong, and his life had switched with Tae-yong, just as he had always wanted. Joo-hee, who saw Hyun-do, immediately greeted him after not visiting his house for a long time. She explains that she just wanted to convince Tae-yong of slandering Seung Cheon. Not long after, Young-sin arrives and tells Hyun-do that the police are looking for Tae-yong to investigate the disappearance of a student named Seung Cheon around the lake. Hearing that, Hyun-do immediately contacted his attorney, Mr. Go, to accompany his son during the investigation process. At the police station, Seung Cheon, now known as Tae-yong, then explained that he only had a fight with his friend by the lake. On the other hand, Mr. Go tries to help his client so that the police don't ask his excessive client questions. The cop then provides a tape of Tae-yong trying to save Seung Cheon before he falls into the lake. Seung Cheon, who saw the tape, was happy because even in the tape, he had swapped places with Tae-yong. On the other hand, a police officer overseeing the investigation process receives a call from someone asking the police to take good care of the case. Meanwhile, around the lake, the police search for Seung Cheon's whereabouts. His family panicked after receiving news of his disappearance, then rushed to the police station to inquire about his whereabouts. At the police station, Seung Cheon sees his family, who now think of him as Tae-yong. Outside the police station, Moon-ki meets Seung Cheon with a concerned look because earlier, his master had suddenly stepped out of the car. Using Moon-ki's cell phone, Seung Cheon tries to reach his cell phone, which was previously dropped around the lake. It looks like someone wearing a raincoat answered the phone without saying anything. Not long after, Seung Cheon sees his family coming out of the police station after they get word that their son has been found. His family then headed to the hospital and met their son, who was none other than Tae-yong, who is now considered Seung Cheon by everyone. When Tae-yong woke up, he saw a family waiting for him, and a woman who claimed to be his mother was beside him. At the same time, Seung Cheon rushes to the hospital and looks for Tae-yong. Shortly after that, Tae-yong runs into Seung Cheon in the hospital hallway and calls him Seung Cheon, when everyone calls him Tae-yong. Upon hearing that, Seung Cheon was shocked and wondered if Tae-yong had realized their lives had been switched. On the other hand, Seung-ah, who recognizes Tae-yong as Seung Cheon, feels something strange about his brother for calling someone else himself. After visiting Tae-yong, Seung Cheon immediately asked Hyun-do to withdraw the blackmail report that was reported to the school so that he would not be expelled. In his study, Hyun-do then orders his men to look for witnesses who have taken photos of his son at the lake to ensure his son doesn't get into trouble. When he returns to Tae-yong's house, Seung Cheon is stunned by the luxury that Tae-yong has been enjoying. He then acts like a boss so no one suspects him. Soon after, he finally meets Moon-ki, who hands over the house plans and a list of the employees who work at his house. Moon-ki is quite surprised by his different attitude, but he suspects that Tae-yong has changed a little because he had a hard day. As Moon-ki leaves, Seung Cheon admires Tae-yong's luxurious room and sees that his pictures have turned into him. Examining the details of the golden spoon, Seung Cheon notices the 30 on the handle of the golden spoon turning to 29 when the clock strikes 12 at night. He quickly realizes that this is the number of days left for him to return to being poor Seung Cheon. The next day, Seung Cheon leaves for school as Tae-yong. However, he is still uncomfortable being friends with Jong-gun and his snobbish group. That day, he finds out that Joo-hee is the daughter of the owner of a well-known TV station. Moments later, Seung Cheon is summoned by the principal to discuss the blackmail issue from the other day. During the meeting, he finds out that the principal and Mrs. Kim already know that Tae-yong deliberately framed him so that Seung Cheon was expelled from school. During a break, Jong-gun and his gang continue bullying a school student. Then Seung Cheon punches him and defends the male student he bullied. Jong-gun, who feels he has less power, cannot fight Seung Cheon, who has now become Tae-yong. Even Seung Cheon gives his phone number to the bullied student and asks the student to contact him if Jong-gun bothers him again. Jong-gun himself is upset and surprised that the Taeyong he knows has changed. Meanwhile, Joo-hee, who sees Seung Cheon as Taeyong, takes him to the school's roof and asks him to stop bothering Seung Cheon. At that time, Seung Cheon realized that Joo-hee was so considerate and cared for him. After Joo-hee left, Yo-jin approached Seung Cheon and revealed that she was still upset because, previously, he had called her a lowly woman. Not only that, but she also told him that Joo-hee was the cause of a student's death in middle school, but Seung Cheon didn't seem to care about it and left. Meanwhile, when Taeyong at Seung Cheon's house wakes up, he suddenly remembers the dinner schedule with his father. Seeing this, Lee Chol and his wife tried to calm him and asked him to rest again. On the other hand, Seung Cheon seems to be trying to follow Hyun-do's strict self-discipline. Hyun-do is also known as a perfectionist, so he tries not to make mistakes in every report he makes to Hyun-do. After becoming Taeyong, Seung Cheon bought some expensive things to give to his family, whereas Taeyong, who has lived to be Seung Cheon, actually likes comics made by Lee Chol, which surprises Seung Cheon's real family because he previously thought his father's comics were not interesting. Seung-ah then asked her parents if her brother is now forgetful after an accident. After dinner was ready, Taeyong, who initially underestimated the food served, became very hungry and said that Seung Cheon's mother's cooking was the most delicious food he had ever eaten. Not long after finishing dinner, the Huang family's servants came to Seung Cheon's family's house and gave them gifts as an apology. Elsewhere, before having dinner with his son, Hyun-do reminds him not to waste money and hopes that Taeyong can become someone who is not affected by money. Sometime later, at dinner, it turns out that Hyun-do invited Joo-hee and her father, Na Song-guk, to join, so Seung Cheon finds out that Joo-hee is Taeyong's fiancé. Joo-hee reveals that she wanted to end her engagement with Taeyong because she wanted to be free to live her life while still in school. After she and her father arrived home, her older stepbrother, Gum-seok, was angry with her because his company was threatened with bankruptcy after Hyun-do canceled his investment in his company after she broke off her engagement with Taeyong. However, Joo-hee's father tries to mediate their problems and tells Joo-hee to reconsider her decision before ending her engagement with Taeyong. Meanwhile, when Seung Cheon returns to his room, he is surprised to see Young-sin searching his room. Young-sin, who was caught, then reasoned that she only wanted to give him school exam materials. After Young-sin left, Seung Cheon immediately looked for his gold spoon and accidentally found a photo of Taeyong with his biological mother. At his house, Jong-gun is being beaten by his father after his father finds out that he cheated at school and failed to make it to the top student list. He suspects Seung Cheon has complained about it, so he plans to teach Seung Cheon a lesson. The next morning, Seung-ah tries to prevent her mother from returning all the luxury items they received last night. However, because her father and brother agreed to return the item, she gave up and handed over the luxury item to her mother. After breakfast, Taeyong said goodbye to Seung Cheon's father to go to school. Lee Chol then gives pocket money which, according to Taeyong, is very little. Despite that, Taeyong thanks him and goes to school walking. When he was about to return home, Lee Chol felt sorry because he had not provided a decent life for his family all this time, so when he saw a construction vacancy flyer, he took the flyer. Afterward, Soon-hye meets Seung Cheon at a restaurant and returns all the luxury items given to her family the night before. Even though at that time, Seung Cheon, now a rich man, had prepared a check to pay off all his family's debts. But Soon-hye refused the gift, said that money could not buy her family's pride, and asked him to stay away from her family. Seung Cheon is speechless because he knows his mother doesn't want to take advantage of other people's kindness. At school, the return of Taeyong, who has become Seung Cheon, makes his friends happy. Joo-hee also looks happy because it's been a while since they saw each other. Then, after school, she invites Taeyong to sit in a park to chat. Sometime later, Jong-gun and his group come to Taeyong to ask him to go to his house. Arriving at his house, Jong-gun and his group immediately beat Taeyong in black and blue. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Hyun-do is seen signing a document related to Taeyong. Sometime later, Joo-hee, who was in a columbarium, did not realize that a mysterious man had been watching her movements. Concurrently, Seung Cheon comes to the columbarium and rushes to Jin-sok's ashes to pay tribute to his best friend. Moments later, Seung Cheon gets a call from his friend that Jong-gun has taken Taeyong away. Hearing the news, he immediately went to Jong-gun's house because he knew Taeyong was in danger. After Seung Cheon gets to Jong-gun's house, he starts beating up Jong-gun, so Jong-gun doesn't bother Taeyong anymore. Then he uses Jong-gun's father's gun to scare Jong-gun. Moon-ki, who was waiting outside, suddenly heard gunshots from inside Jong-gun's house. Not long after the gunshots, Seung Cheon heads to Hyun-do's office to tell him what he just did at Jong-gun's house. Because Hyun-do is in a meeting, finally, Seung Cheon waits for him in his study and reads the will, which states that all of his assets will not be passed on to Taeyong. When Hyun-do walks into his study, Seung Cheon announces that he's caused a problem and tells Hyun-do not to worry about the mess he caused. Shortly after that, Jong-gun's father suddenly calls Hyun-do, just as Seung Cheon had expected. Then he answered the phone according to his son's request. Seung Cheon then visits Jong-gun, who is hospitalized because of an injured hand. Jong-gun's mother was angry with him for injuring her son. However, she pauses after hearing Seung Cheon tell her that he didn't shoot Jong-gun and that Jong-gun only dislocated his hand after falling from the shock of the shot he fired. Seung Cheon then mentions that Jong-gun often bullies at school, so he wants to teach Jong-gun a lesson. If they want to dispute the shooting incident, he threatens to reveal to the police that Jong-gun's father illegally owned a gun. Soon after, Seung Cheon drives Tae-yong home after seeing that he is scared. Moon-ki, who notices Tae-yong's habit of biting his nails, reminds him of his young master's habit when he is scared. Seung Cheon's kindness to Tae-yong now makes him feel indebted. But Seung Cheon explains that he feels guilty that Tae-yong had to take his place and had been beaten up by Jong-gun. When Tae-yong arrives at Seung Cheon's family's house, the landlord returns and kicks out Seung Cheon's family because they have been in arrears for 3 months. Lee Chol then tried to talk to the debt collectors so that he and his family were allowed to stay there and would repay the rent. In fact, he was willing to clean the shoes of the man who owned the house for 20,000 won. From a distance, Seung Cheon sees Lee Chol cleaning the shoes of the owner of the house, which embarrasses him, and he leaves. On the way home, Seung Cheon thinks that switching lives is the right decision because he is ashamed to have such a useless father. On top of that, he has to think of a way to change Hyun-do's will. At the convenience store, Joo-hee is seen in a hurry because she arrived late. Meanwhile, the man who followed her to the columbarium was seen across from the convenience store and seemed to hate Joo-hee. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Jong-gun is so upset by the news that the Dosan group's fortunes are steadily increasing that he turns off the television. Yo-jin, who was there, also seemed enthusiastic about discussing Tae-yong's birthday next week, so Jong-gun was even more annoyed. She also reveals that Tae-yong and Seung Cheon were born on the same day, and she thinks it's a very strange coincidence between them. The next day, it turns out that Chol has to work as a laborer in an eviction project, so he has to face the residents who oppose evictions. The project manager also had time to rebuke Lee Chol, who looked nervous while carrying out the demolition. Lee Chol hides his new job and tells his wife that he works at a publishing house as a comic artist. Meanwhile, Soon-hye is currently trying to find a new place to live in preparation for when her family is forced to move from their current house. At night, Lee Chol seemed to be resting and accidentally met a man named Jong Wee-nam, who always followed Joo-hee. Wee-nam reportedly got out of prison a month after his life was shattered by losing his beloved daughter 5 years ago. Lee Chol finds Wee-nam's wallet with a photo of his daughter, but Wee-nam takes it immediately. 1 week later, Lee Chol finally gets paid and intends to buy a birthday cake for Seung Cheon. Meanwhile, Seung Cheon, who was at Tae-yong's house, received various luxurious gifts from Hyun-do's relatives and relations. Moon-ki then carries a stock certificate to be given to Hyun-do at his birthday party. Meanwhile, Joo-hee seems to be looking for the address of Seung Cheon's family's house until finally, she asks the old woman who sells antiques. She doesn't think the old woman knows Seung Cheon and gives directions to Seung Cheon's family house. Not only that, but the old lady also asked Joo-hee to give a letter to Seung Cheon's friend named Tae-yong. Then she received the letter without any suspicion. At Seung Cheon's family home, Soon-hye is seen cooking seaweed soup for her son's birthday. Even though it was foreign to Tae-yong, who never ate seaweed soup on his birthday, he is now very grateful to have a mother who always loves him. Even he refuses Soon-hye's money because getting a mother's love is his most valuable thing. Soon-hye, who heard that, was very happy because she thought that her son would ignore her after growing up. Suddenly, they were surprised by the arrival of Joo-hee, who wished him a birthday and gave him a present. On the other hand, Seung Cheon, who has now become Tae-yong, seems to be enjoying a lavish birthday party with Hyun-do's family and close relations. He presents Hyun-do with a stock certificate from the proceeds of his pocket money. Seeing his son getting interested in business, Hyun-do felt proud. Song-guk is also surprised by the change in Tae-yong's demeanor, which he used to know as lazy. Shortly after, Song-guk calls Joo-hee to ask her to come to Tae-yong's birthday party. Seung Cheon then appears to be greeting all of Hyun-do's corporate relations guests, as he checks the names of the list of businessmen he put together to study earlier. Not long after, Yo-jin approached Seung Cheon because she felt that the Tae-yong she knew was very different because she greeted businessmen by their full names and even prepared a gift for his father. Because it was so strange, Yo-jin wondered why Tae-yong was now inviting his schoolmates who were not close friends. On the other hand, Joo-hee, constantly pressured by her father, finally came to the birthday party. When she got there, Joo-hee was surprised because Tae-yong, whom she knew as Seung Cheon, was also there. Sometime after, Yong-sin asked the fake Tae-yong to entertain the invitees by playing the piano. Seung Cheon panics because he doesn't know how to play the piano. However, suddenly Tae-yong, now known as Seung Cheon, started playing the piano, which amazed everyone because his playing technique was the same as the real Tae-yong's. At that moment, Seung Cheon realizes that even though his and Tae-yong's fortunes have been exchanged, their talents and habits cannot change. Furthermore, Seung Cheon finds a letter from an old antique dealer to Joo-hee. After opening the letter, he is very surprised because, under the rule of the Golden Spoon, Seung Cheon and Tae-yong can return to their real lives if they meet their parents for birthdays. Realizing that his plan could fail if Tae-yong meets Hyun-do, Seung Cheon immediately looks for Tae-yong's whereabouts. Finally, Seung Cheon spots Tae-yong at the elevator. At the same time, Hyun-do is also heading for the elevator, so he tries to distract his father by hugging him and saying that he is very grateful to be born as his only son. When he found out Tae-yong had left, Seung Cheon finally went with Hyun-do. At night, Joo-hee feels weird with Seung Cheon now because he asked her to help him with the assignment. Not only that, but she is also surprised because Seung Cheon likes wine and can play the piano like Tae-yong. Not long after, her father comes and reminds Joo-hee not to hang out with Seung Cheon and asks her to choose friends who are on the same level as their family. Suddenly, Song-guk brings up a girl named Nara, Joo-hee's friend from a poor family who was caught stealing her expensive watch in middle school. Joo-hee is upset because her father brings up the matter even though Nara has passed away. At home, Young-sin reveals that she was very annoyed by Seung Cheon's piano playing at Tae-yong's birthday party. She says that she doesn't like Tae-yong being so close to Seung Cheon. Hyun-do then talks about a will, and he says that the heir to his company doesn't have to be his son but someone who can protect his wealth in the Dosun group. After the conversation is over, Young-sin calls someone. Meanwhile, Seung Cheon, who just arrived at his room, looks worried because the letter about the gold spoon from the old woman who sells antiques has disappeared. Apparently, the letter fell at the party when he was busy looking for Tae-yong. The next day, Seung Cheon visits Joo-hee to ask where she met the old woman selling antiques. Joo-hee then tells how she met the old lady before meeting his family. Hearing this, Seung Cheon tries to prevent Joo-hee from meeting his poor family. However, she looks irritated and demands that Seung Cheon, whom she knows as Tae-yong, not insult Seung Cheon's family because she likes Seung Cheon no matter what. Hearing that, he becomes uncomfortable hearing her reveal this. At Seung Cheon's family house, Tae-yong finds the birthday cake Lee Chol left for him. He left a message saying sorry that he couldn't accompany his son on his birthday. In the message, he also revealed that he would try to earn money so that his kids' lives wouldn't be difficult. At night, Moonki reveals that Seung Cheon's family is in danger of being evicted if they don't pay their rent soon. As it turns out, Seung Cheon has thought of a way to help his family. Moonki is relieved that his young master has become wiser and even managed to overcome his trauma from events in America. Hearing that, Seung Cheon becomes curious about what happened to Tae-yong in America 5 years ago. Moreover, one of the maids at the Huang family house, Miss Gong, always gives him medicine daily. On the other hand, Young-sin tries to persuade Miss Gong to help her find someone who can keep an eye on Tae-yong because she is very worried about his current state. A few days later, Moonki finally gets some information about On Moo-in, the rent collector who used to come to Seung Cheon's family's house. On Moo-in and his group turned out to be a gangster group in the area. With the crime evidence that Moonki and Seung Cheon have, they head to On Moo-in's property office to negotiate. However, their arrival was not welcomed, so Moonki, proficient in martial arts, had to fight and defeat all the gangsters. Finally, Moo-in agrees to follow Seung Cheon's orders so that his business is not reported to the police. Not long after, Seung Cheon and Moonki watch as Moo-in and some of his men come to Seung Cheon's family's house to apologize. Moo-in then makes concessions to Seung Cheon's family to pay the rent for the house. Seung Cheon feels reassured because his family won't find out that he helped them. On the way home, Seung Cheon feels guilty about his family because he traded his parents' life and affection to enjoy the Tae-yong family's wealth. Elsewhere, a homeless woman is seen looking for an old lady who sells antiques. The woman apparently wanted to return the golden spoon she had used before. The next day, at school, Seung Cheon becomes jealous after seeing how close Joo-hee and Tae-yong are now. At night, Seung Cheon also comes around the convenience store while looking at Joo-hee, who is working. Then he becomes suspicious of Wee-nam watching Joo-hee while drunk. When Joo-hee walks home after work, Wee-nam seems to follow her and tries to hurt her. So, he wants revenge for the death of his daughter, Nara. He wants to threaten Joo-hee's father to give him money as compensation for his daughter's death. Meanwhile, Seung Cheon, concerned about Joo-hee's safety, keeps dialing her number but doesn't pick up. Then he rushes after Joo-hee because he is afraid that she will be hurt by the man watching her in front of the convenience store. After Seung Cheon heard Joo-hee's screams, he rushed to her aid and tried to catch Wee-nam. Unfortunately, his attempt failed after Wee-nam managed to knock him down, and Wee-nam finally ran away from there. Joo-hee then tells Seung Cheon that the man is Nara's father, who wants revenge because his daughter was expelled from school after being caught stealing her watch, even though the watch had been returned. At that time, Joo-hee could not forgive Nara because the watch Nara took was a gift from her late mother. After being expelled from school, it was reported that Nara had leukemia and died. Until now, Joo-hee still hasn't forgiven herself and regrets why she didn't forgive Nara's mistake at that time. Seung Cheon tries to calm her and convince her that Nara's death is not her fault. Some time passes, and now Seung Cheon tries to win Hyun-do's heart so that his current father is willing to change his will. He begs Hyun-do to change the will's contents and plans to attend the shareholders' meeting. He assures Hyun-do he will do his best to inherit the Dosun group. Hyun-do looks pleased that the will he left on his desk could change Tae-young's behavior. One day, Seung Cheon is in class and accidentally finds a note from the gold spoon saleswoman in his book. Not long after, he received a message on his cell phone from an unknown number. In the message, the sender said he knew he was not the real Tae-young. He is shocked that someone already knows his secret. He suspects his friends in his class, but this is not proven. Moments later, Tae-young enters while playing on his cell phone. However, Seung Cheon's suspicions were not proven because Tae-young's cell phone did not ring when he called the number. It was Joo-hee's cell phone that rang after receiving an incoming call. During break time, Seung Cheon, who rechecks the letter, is surprised because the contents of the letter are not there. When he visits one of his friend admits that he found the envelope empty at a previous birthday party and put it in Seung Cheon's textbook. Seung Cheon suspects that one of his friends is switching places like him using a golden spoon, and he now suspects Joo-hee of being too friendly to others, even though she's from a rich family. He becomes even more suspicious of her, especially after learning about her and Nara's past. She is also the person who delivered the letter. To confirm this, Seung Cheon secretly searches Joo-hee's bag and looks for her cell phone. On the other hand, Joo-hee is with Yo-jin, who warns her to stay away from Tae-young. While listening to Yo-jin's request, Joo-hee suddenly remembered that her phone had been left behind in class, so she rushed back to class. Arriving at class, she is surprised to see Seung Cheon, who plays Tae-young, rummaging through her bag. Seung Cheon immediately explains that he wants to make sure who called Joo-hee before class started. Then she points out that her father called her this morning, and then he apologizes. When Seung Cheon sits in the bleachers at the sports field, he goes back to reading the message sent to him. Suddenly, Tae-young appears and reads the message until he asks if Tae-young sent the message. When Seung Cheon asks, Tae-young says he didn't send the message. At the same time, he warns Seung Cheon not to go near Joo-hee. At dinner, Young-sin, eating with Seung Cheon, suggests that he focuses more on studying than taking care of the company's shareholder meeting. However, he doesn't care what Young-sin says and just accepts the suggestion. However, she suddenly feels strange when she learns that her stepson is now consuming coffee, which Tae-young avoided so much before. Sometime later, Seung Cheon calls Joo-hee to the police station because Wee-nam has been caught. The police report he was reported by a student named Yo-jin for sneaking into her house to express his longing for his late daughter, Nara. Joo-hee explains that the Nara family has rented a room at Yo-jin's house for several years. Seung Cheon, who wants to investigate Nara's death, finally invites Yo-jin to the columbarium. He suspects that Yo-jin is Nara who is changing lives using a golden spoon because, according to Joo-hee's story, Yo-jin was known to be sick since middle school. After arriving at the columbarium, Seung Cheon asks Yo-jin about Nara. Yo-jin admits that she is not very close to Nara even though Nara's family has rented a room at her house. Surprisingly, Yo-jin suddenly looks sad when Seung Cheon asks why she reported Wee-nam to the police station. She admits that Wee-nam was a father who often abused Nara when she was still alive. When Yo-jin was about to leave the venue, her steps suddenly stopped after Seung Cheon called her as Nara. She seems annoyed that he called her Nara and accuses him of being the one who sent her mysterious messages. Meanwhile, Joo-hee is looking at a picture of herself with Yo-jin and Nara in middle school. Soon after, she received a message stating she was not the real Joo-hee. The next day, Tae-young and his friends also get a similar message. Finally, Jong-gun admits that he deliberately sent the message to his classmates as a joke using his mother's number to prank all his classmates. Not long after, Jong-gun saw Tae-young eating ice cream using an ordinary spoon, so he taunted Tae-young, now known as Seung Cheon, for not using a golden spoon. On the other hand, Seung Cheon looks worried at Jong-gun's question. As for Tae-young, even though he had difficulty remembering, he got memory that he had used the golden spoon. When eating with Seung Cheon's family, Tae-young asks Seung-hye and Seung-ah for the gold spoon, but they never know about the gold spoon he is referring to. Then he tried to find a gold spoon in his room, and he found nothing until he was sure that the gold spoon was left in his old house. The following day, Seung Cheon, accompanied by Moon-ki, goes to meet On Moon to buy an apartment for his real family because now there are only 7 days left to change lives. When they left the place, without them knowing it, someone was spying on them and reported this to Young-sin, who was now waiting for someone to arrive. When he was about to go home, Seung Cheon's journey was hampered by a demonstration by the victims of the evictions in the middle of the road. He was surprised to see his real father, Lee Chol, who was one of the eviction workers there, so he stopped the car and came out to meet Lee Chol. Seung Cheon then approaches Lee Chol, who is being treated harshly by his superiors. Lee Chol saw him, who he knew as Tae-young, and asked Seung Cheon to keep a secret from his family. Seung Cheon becomes very sad to see his father working as a laborer. He feels sorry for and disappointed with his father's attitude. Annoyed with his father, Seung Cheon starts to smile after Joo-hee invites him to dinner together. Then she treated him with her wages after working at the convenience store as a thank you because Seung Cheon, known as Tae-young, had helped her a lot all this time. Tae-yong, whom Joo-hee knows, is now more mature, and from their conversation, Seung Cheon learns that 5 years ago, Tae-yong experienced a traumatic shooting incident in America that caused him to have a panic disorder. Then they continued their chat over coffee in the garden and discussed their engagement. Suddenly, Joo-hee reveals that it's best to cancel the engagement after they turn 20. However, Seung Cheon refuses because he likes her and will try to win her heart. Meanwhile, Tae-yong visits the Huang family's house to find out if his gold spoon was left there. There, he meets Young-sin and begs her to allow him to wait until Seung Cheon, also known as Tae-yong, returns. When Young-sin accompanies Tae-yong, she is very surprised because the young man she knows as Seung Cheon, who is in front of her, has a taste for drinks, is fluent in French, and has the exact same talent for playing the piano as Tae-yong. Young-sin then offered to have dinner together, but Tae-yong refused because he was not used to eating at other people's homes, so she was surprised because previously Seung Cheon, whom she knew, had eaten several times at that house. Finally, Tae-yong, who thinks he is Seung Cheon, waits in Tae-yong's room and starts looking for his gold spoon until he finds a photo of his biological mother that he no longer recognizes. On the other hand, Seung Cheon, who knew that Tae-yong was already in his room, panicked and immediately headed to his room. He was angry and snatched the gold spoon held by Tae-yong. He scolds Tae-yong for searching for other people's belongings without permission. However, Tae-yong thinks Seung Cheon is overreacting over trivial matters, so he chooses to leave. At the front of the house, Tae-yong meets Hyun-do, who causes his panic attack to flare up, so he immediately takes his leave. On the way home, his panic attacks worsen, and he tries to contact Lee Chol, currently at work. Soon after, Lee Chol went to meet him, who was already at a pedestrian bridge. Seeing his son lying helpless, Lee Chol tried to help him regulate his breathing so he could breathe. When together with Hyun-do, Young-sin tells about Seung Cheon's behavior, which is very similar to Tae-yong. She provides proof of purchasing an apartment in Tae-yong's name, which makes her worry that Seung Cheon is taking advantage of Tae-yong. Hearing this, Hyun-do calls Moon-ki and talks about the progress of the search for witnesses to the fight at the lake. Moon-ki reports that the police have had difficulty finding the witness until now. From this conversation, he concludes that Moon-ki is hiding the friendship between Tae-yong and Seung Cheon because Moon-ki did not report to him about buying an apartment in Tae-yong's name. At morning, Yo-jin is watching Wee-nam, who will be transferred to prison, and she calls him daddy. As it turns out, Seung Cheon's suspicion that Yo-jin was a gold spoon user was correct. Then she turns out to be a witness who saw Seung Cheon and Tae-yong fight at the lake some time ago. She throws Seung Cheon's cell phone into the lake and takes Tae-yong's cell phone, so there is no evidence at the crime scene. Meanwhile, at Hyun-do's house, Young-sin's younger brother Jun-tae has returned from America and greets Hyun-do and Seung Cheon. However, Hyun-do doesn't seem to like him that much. On another occasion, Seung Cheon found out that Jun-tae had a bad temper because he strangled Seung Cheon and reasoned that Seung Cheon was being rude by looking directly at him. Seung Cheon realizes that apart from his father, Tae-yong is also under pressure from his abusive uncle. Because of this, he intends to return to his old house. However, seeing that his family seems fine without him, he decides to leave. Meanwhile, Seung-ah tells her family that she was offered an apartment unit that Tae-yong's chauffeur, Moon-ki, can rent cheaply. Upon hearing that, Tae-yong also feels suspicious that Moon-ki did this on the orders of his young master, Seung Cheon, who is now known as Tae-yong. On the other hand, Lee Chol really admires Tae-yong's drawing talent. A few days later, he returned to work on the demolition project. However, today's project was marred by riots because residents rejected the eviction and demonstrated anarchically, injuring the eviction workers, including him. At another place, Seung Cheon is now getting ready to go to school while observing the number of his gold spoon, which turns out that today is the last day he exchanges fortunes with Tae-yong. While at school, he meets Tae-yong, and he is shocked when Tae-yong finds out that the apartment Moon-ki offered to his sister belongs to him. After Seung Cheon thinks Tae-yong is naive for not wanting wealth, Tae-yong insists that he will not change his parents even though his parents are poor. Suddenly, Joo-hee arrives with Tae-yong's cell phone, which keeps ringing in the classroom. After learning that Lee Chol was in the hospital, they immediately headed for the hospital. After seeing his father, Seung Cheon immediately approached and called Lee Chol as his father. Suddenly, Hyun-do appears behind the curtains, knowing that Seung Cheon worries that people will know his secret. At another place, Yo-jin is seen looking at Seung Cheon's missing letter and keeps it in the safe where she keeps her golden spoon. Several years ago, Yo-jin, who lived as Nara, had to live with the drunken and abusive Wee-nam while the real Yo-jin was suffering from leukemia. One day, Nara meets an old woman who sells gold spoons, and finally, her life is exchanged for Yo-jin's life, so Yo-jin, who is sickly, must die as Nara. In fact, Yo-jin's parents have forgotten her terminal illness, which suddenly recovered so that Nara can live as Yo-jin until now. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Seung Cheon tries to make excuses so that Hyun-do isn't suspicious of him. He says he heard that Hyun-do was in the hospital and was worried that he thought it was him who was hospitalized. After Hyun-do takes him home, Seung Cheon refuses and insists on staying there to build public opinion to improve the image of Hyun-do's company, especially since many reporters cover Lee Chol's incident. His wise attitude made Hyun-do and Mr. Go quite impressed by the change in Tae-yong they know now. With his current identity being Tae-yong, Seung Cheon can't get too close to Lee Chol in front of his family. Suddenly, his condition became critical, so Lee Chol had to undergo surgery. Seung Cheon thinks it's a punishment for him choosing to be rich and forgetting his family. A sad Seung Cheon returns to the Hyun-do residence and tries to leave with some money. However, this was blocked by Jun-tae, and even Jun-tae took the gold spoon he had brought. Then he fought back, so the money he carried scattered to the floor. After fighting Jun-tae and taking his gold spoon, Seung Cheon sees the old woman who sells gold spoons and asks her to help him return to his former life. The old woman says he must return to his old house and eat with the golden spoon. Then she says that they will see each other in 1 year and he could get the chance to switch places again. However, he believes he doesn't want to become rich at the expense of his family. At the hospital, Lee Chol's surgery has been completed, and soon Hye asks Tae-yong to return home. Tae-yong obeyed his mother, and when he was about to leave, he saw his mother's socks with holes, so he intended to buy new socks. Meanwhile, Seung-ah, who had just arrived home, was very surprised after seeing Seung Cheon eating rice without side dishes. Seeing her arrival, Seung Cheon looks surprised, but she suddenly addresses him as Seung Cheon, so he feels relieved. Seeing his brother crying, Seung-ah hugged Seung Cheon and tried to calm him down. Meanwhile, Tae-yong had just bought socks and was confused about why Seung Cheon was there. Seung Cheon immediately went to the hospital and visited his father. He was hugging his mother while apologizing. Not long after, he came and looked very happy after knowing his father had regained consciousness. The next day, Joo-hee gives Seung Cheon food and a motivational book which makes him happy because he got her attention with his real self. Elsewhere, Tae-yong has returned to his luxurious life and dreams of having breakfast with his mother. However, it was Moon-ki who came and woke him up. Tae-yong could not believe that his mother had died because he had recently felt a mother's love. At breakfast, Hyun-do asks about the apartment he bought earlier. When Jun-tae and Yong-sin accuse Seung Cheon's family of taking advantage of his wealth, Tae-yong becomes angry and defends them. Finally, the apartment problem is now taken over by Hyun-do. After breakfast, Jun-tae seems irritated with Tae-yong, who dared to fight him. However, he does not resist when his uncle tries to use violence to hurt him. Luckily, Moon-ki arrives, so Jun-tae leaves them. He can only do a little to help Tae-yong from Jun-tae because he wants something to do with Yong-sin. At that time, Moon-ki apologized to Tae-yong because he couldn't keep the secret about buying the apartment. Meanwhile, Tae-yong is still trying to remember his reasons for buying the apartment and questions the socks he keeps in his trouser pockets. Turning to Seung Cheon's family, now they have to face a new problem because the head of the contractor asked Lee Chol to cover the cost of repairing a damaged company car by 100 million won. At school, Yo-jin is curious that Seung Cheon has been using the golden spoon for a month. Because of this, she sees Tae-yong and finds that their life has returned to normal. Meanwhile, Joo-hee, who is in class, tries to listen to the conversation of her friend, who is calling Seung Cheon because he is having financial problems after the head of the contractor asks for compensation for the company car that was damaged due to the residents' demonstration. In the toilet, Soon-hye was alone. She felt hopeless and cried in frustration because she had to involve her kids to pay off her debt. Not long after, she sees a pamphlet advertising the sale of organs for high fees. On the other hand, Seung Cheon also plans to sell Tae-yong's watch, which he still wears. After going to the watch shop, the owner kicks Seung Cheon out and says the watch is fake. As it turns out, previously, Jun-tae had exchanged all of Tae-yong's watches for counterfeit goods. A disappointed Seung Cheon finally throws the watch in the trash. The next day, Soon-hye is seen having a medical examination before carrying out an operation to sell her kidney, so that her family would not become suspicious. Then she said she would go out of town for a week to borrow money from her friend. When Soon-hye was at the park and was on the phone with someone related to selling her kidney, Seung Cheon overheard his mother's conversation, so he forbade her. He promises to try to find a way to repay the debt. Soon after, Seung Cheon is now meeting with Hyun-do to borrow money. However, he can't give the money because Seung Cheon has no bail. Moreover, Lee Chol's medical expenses have been covered by his company. On the other hand, Joo-hee plans to sell her luxury bags to help Seung Cheon after her father refuses to give her the money. By evening, Joo-hee, who has earned money from selling the bags, plans to give the money to him. But at the same time, Yo-jin arrives and hands Seung Cheon a check first. Yo-jin then hugs him, knowing that Joo-hee saw them. Sometime later, all the students have graduated from high school, and Tae-yong is seen treating his friends to drinks to celebrate graduation day. Joo-hee, who is there, doesn't seem to be enjoying the party much since Seung Cheon isn't there. After the party, Yo-jin asks Seung Cheon to pick her up so Joo-hee and her schoolmates think she is now close to him. However, he seems compelled to do so. Meanwhile, Tae-yong, who knows Joo-hee is going home alone, chooses to accompany her home. On the way, he discusses their official engagement. Surprisingly, it turns out that Seung Cheon and his family are now forced to obey Yo-jin's father's orders, Dong-pil, after receiving financial assistance to pay off their debts. Seeing her father treating them badly, Yo-jin was angry with him and said that she promised to marry Tae-yong. Hearing this, her father finally complied with her request to be kind to Seung Cheon and his family. In his room, Seung Cheon counts his savings as not enough to apply to a university. He has also thrown away his dream of becoming rich using a golden spoon after seeing the spoon he still keeps in his savings box. Meanwhile, Tae-yong is being visited by a psychiatrist helping him deal with anxiety disorders. The psychiatrist said that his condition has been much better in the past year. Tae-yong can now overcome his anxiety disorder without medication using a relaxation technique that someone taught him. Unfortunately, he doesn't remember that it was Lee Chol who had taught him the relaxation technique. At Tae-yong's residence, Joo-hee visits Young-sin to congratulate Young-sin's newly released new album. Moments later, Yo-jin comes with Seung Cheon to congratulate Young-sin. At that time, Seung Cheon immediately said goodbye after seeing Joo-hee was there. Yo-jin and Seung Cheon's closeness makes Young-sin wonder. However, she reveals that she has always considered Seung Cheon as her chauffeur. Joo-hee then reprimands Yo-jin's attitude and asks her not to belittle Seung Cheon in front of other people. Moreover, Yo-jin, whom Joo-hee used to know, was a good girl and never discriminated against friends. Yo-jin finally tells Joo-hee that Seung Cheon's family has been living at her house all this time and says that Seung Cheon is shameless because he is willing to do anything for money. Unexpectedly, Seung Cheon and Tae-yong came and overheard the conversation. Seung Cheon finally admits that he chose to avoid Joo-hee because he, who liked her, felt he didn't deserve to be by her side. When Seung Cheon leaves, Joo-hee tries to catch up with him and says she still likes him, no matter his state. Elsewhere, Hyun-do, playing golf, accidentally sees Song-guk and his daughter arguing over company matters. This is a consideration for Hyun-do to invest in Song-guk's company. One day Joo-hee meets Tae-yong, who wants to meet Seung Cheon at Yo-jin's place. Unfortunately, now Seung Cheon is with Yo-jin by the lake. From Yo-jin's confession, Seung Cheon finally learns that she is Nara, who has used a golden spoon to change her destiny. Even though he previously lived life as Tae-yong, Seung Cheon is determined not to use the golden spoon again. Suddenly, Yo-jin takes out Seung Cheon's gold spoon and throws it into the lake. He is shocked and upset about what she did. Meanwhile, while waiting for Yo-jin, Tae-yong and Joo-hee accidentally find a gold spoon in Yo-jin's room. At the lakeside, Yo-jin admits that the spoon she just threw away was a fake because the real gold spoon was in her room. Seeing Seung Cheon's reaction, who still wants to keep the gold spoon, Yo-jin offers a plan for him to use the gold spoon again and switch positions with Tae-yong, then marry her. Later, with the wealth they get, they can both enjoy. Hearing that, Seung Cheon is annoyed by her idea, but she asks him to consider it. In Yo-jin's room, Tae-yong is curious about the golden spoon because Seung Cheon has one too. Moments later, Tae-yong and Joo-hee are hosted by Dong-pil. They are shocked to see Seung Cheon's parents working for Yo-jin's family to cook and clean the house without a salary because Seung Cheon's family has borrowed money from Yo-jin's family to pay off debts. Tae-yong then reminds Dong-pil not to treat Seung Cheon's family arbitrarily. Not long after, Yo-jin arrives, so Joo-hee tries to remind her that she can respect Seung Cheon's family even though her family has money. However, Yo-jin reminds Joo-hee to make her think more about her father's company which is about to go bankrupt. At the Dosan Group office, Song-guk and Goom Seog meet with Hyun-do because the Dosan Group has withdrawn investment in Song-guk's company. Hyun-do reasons that the Dosan Group has greatly helped so far, but Song-guk's company's decline was due to Goom Seok's incompetent leadership. Then Hyun-do asks Song-guk to hand over his company so it doesn't go bankrupt. However, Song-guk refused because he felt offended that he brought up something he had done when defending Tae-yong, who was in trouble when he was in America. Because of the argument, Hyun-do decides to call off Tae-yong and Joo-hee's engagement. That night, Joo-hee, who was at home, looked very worried about her father, who came home drunk. Song-guk says that her and Tae-yong's engagement has been called off, and he promises to find a replacement for Tae-yong with a better man. Meanwhile, Lee Chol and his wife are also currently fighting because Soon-hye is annoyed by her husband's behavior, who only drinks without thinking of a solution so that their family life is not always trampled on by Yo-jin's family. Hearing his parents fight, Seung Cheon plans to do something. The next day, after seeing Yo-jin and her father leave, Seung Cheon rushes into Yo-jin's room to find his golden spoon. Unfortunately, while Seung Cheon is searching, Yo-jin returns to her room, causing them to fight. She again offers the golden spoon on the condition that Seung Cheon must marry her after switching places with Tae-yong. Seung Cheon, who didn't want to get caught up in the problem, left Yo-jin's room without bringing anything. A few days later, news of Song-guk's company going bankrupt spread, so Seung Cheon asks Joo-hee to hang out with him and tries to cheer her up. Even though Joo-hee faces many problems, she doesn't worry as long as Seung Cheon is by her side. On the other hand, Yo-jin asked her father to kick Seung Cheon's family out of the house, hoping that Seung Cheon would be even more desperate and fulfill her request. Dong-pil then asks Seung Cheon's family to leave his house immediately if they can't pay off their debt within 10 days. In front of his children, Lee Chol promises to find money to repay Dong-pil's debt and find a new place to live. On the other hand, Seung-ah is looking for loan money that he will later use to buy shares that can provide profits in a short time. One day, Tae-young finally discovered that his father had called off his engagement with Joo-hee. Hyun-do explains that the engagement is not financially beneficial for the Dosun group. Tae-young was disappointed with his father's attitude, who always thought about money, so he said that he would still fight for Joo-hee because she was the savior of his life. Unknowingly, Young-sin and Jun-tae eavesdrop on the conversation, so she asks Jun-tae to quickly enter the Hyun-do company so he can start controlling the wealth of the Dosun group. On the way, Tae-young is still thinking about Joo-hee. Suddenly, memories of events in America surfaced, making his anxiety disorder flare up. Then Moonki immediately pulled over when he saw Tae-young, who was having shortness of breath. Meanwhile, Soon-hye is going somewhere with Dong-pil. Then he tries to seduce her and assumes her family debt is paid off if she is willing to do the unthinkable with him. As it turns out, Dong-pil has liked Soon-hye for so long that he keeps trying to persuade her. However, Soon-hye, who realized that the meeting was different from the original purpose, immediately refused and left him by bus. At the publisher's office, Lee Chol now has a job drawing adult comic stories. When he calls Soon-hye to tell her the news, she doesn't answer his calls, so he starts to worry and visits his wife's workplace. When he gets there, Lee Chol gets the info that Soon-hye is away, so he thinks his wife is looking for a loan from her friend. On the other hand, Seung Cheon is now visiting Jin Sog's empty house. Suddenly, a homeless woman comes and breaks into Jin Sog's house. Seung Cheon, who feels sorry, finally gives some money to the woman. At that time, he hears that the woman is looking for gold spoons and has been looking for the old lady selling gold spoons for years. After that, Seung Cheon, in front of Yo-jin's house, accidentally saw Dong-pil seducing his mother, so he planned to teach Yo-jin's father a lesson. Suddenly, Yo-jin arrives and prevents him from getting involved in a more complicated matter, and he finally discourages this. Seung Cheon, who is now frustrated, seems to be spending time drinking at a tavern. He started to regret that when he switched positions first, he didn't take Tae-young's original watch. Then he starts to think that if he had the chance to switch places, he wouldn't waste another chance. In fact, because he was drunk, Seung Cheon seemed to see the old woman selling gold spoons in front of him who said he wanted to use gold spoons again. Meanwhile, Tae-young is searching the internet for information about a traumatic event when he attended school in America. Unable to get any information on the internet, Moonki says that Young-sin might still have a copy of the article related to the incident, so with his help, Tae-young finally manages to retrieve the copy without making Young-sin suspicious. After getting the copy, he finds an article about a student named James. When the situation was safe, Tae-young asked Moonki to find a reporter named Lee Chol-seung, who wrote the article. At the convenience store, Seung Cheon, who is at work, is shocked by the news of the drop in the price of the stock he had previously invested in. He is very angry and thinks there is no other way to get money than trading his life with Tae-young. Soon after, Seung Cheon immediately met Yo-jin, hanging out with her friends to ask for his golden spoon. At the same time, his family has been kicked out of Dong-pil's place, so they have to live separately temporarily. Even now, Seung Cheon has got his golden spoon. He is still in a dilemma, so he goes to the church where Joo-hee used to worship. On the other hand, Joo-hee is angry with Song-guk because he handed over his shares to Gum-sok to sell to Jun-tae. Joo-hee thinks her father is too obsessed with money, even though the family company is on the verge of going bankrupt. Due to the dispute, she decides to leave the house. After Tae-young gets information that reporter Lee Chol-seung has worked at Song-guk's office, he finally goes to Song-guk's house and asks about the events that involved him in America. Then Song-guk gives Tae-young a hard drive and tells him that James died because Tae-young shot him. Hearing that, Tae-young is so shocked at this fact that he pushes Song-guk's body repeatedly against the wall and leaves the scene in a confused state of mind. Meanwhile, Joo-hee goes to church and meets Seung Cheon there. He says he hopes Joo-hee will still like him even if he appears different. When she returned home, Joo-hee found her house dark, and no maids were there. Suddenly, she saw her father's blood on the floor. The next morning, Tae-young wakes up and tells his father that he had a dream about Song-guk's death. Hyun-do then asks him to forget about their meeting the night before. Tae-young, who doesn't remember anything, wonders if Song-guk's death had anything to do with him because he saw dried blood on his hands. When Tae-young went to Joo-hee's house to confirm this, he saw that many police officers had arrived. Question after question kept looming within him until he ran aimlessly and almost got hit by a car. Luckily, Yo-jin came to save Tae-young and tried reviving him to keep him alive. Yo-jin did that because she found out that Seung Cheon was currently at Tae-young's house using his golden spoon. After successfully entering Tae-young's house, Seung Cheon asked for food and started using his golden spoon until finally, their lives were switched again. Elsewhere, Joo-hee is devastated after her father's death. Not long after, the investigation team suddenly arrived, and it was revealed that it was Hyun-do's men who ordered the removal of evidence in the form of Tae-yong's fingerprints and CCTV camera footage. The next day, the news of Song-guk spread in the media. Mr. Go also reports to Hyun-do that all matters have been resolved, and the police confirmed that Song-guk's death was caused by accident. Seung Cheon, who has become Tae-yong, comes to Hyun-do about the news of Song-guk's death. Soon after, Hyun-do reminds him that his son should forget about the incident, so Seung Cheon suspects Song-guk's death is related to Tae-yong. Meanwhile, when he met Young-sin, Seung Cheon found out that Tae-yong had come home drunk. On the other hand, a woman maid was seen cleaning up Tae-yong's belongings and was asked to burn his blood-stained clothes. On the other hand, Seung Cheon now looks at the golden spoon and finds out that the time of fate has turned into 10 years. Meanwhile, Hyun-do warns Moon-ki for failing to protect Tae-yong several times and asks him not to make the same mistake. While attending her father's funeral, Joo-hee thinks something is wrong with his death, but Gum-seok instead scolded her and asked her not to think things through. Seung Cheon, who has become Tae-yong, also comes to the funeral, and only Yo-jin knows his real identity there. However, Seung Cheon is jealous of Tae-yong again because now Joo-hee is closer to Tae-yong than him. Then he leaves the funeral after an altercation ensues over Joo-hee's brother taking a stake in the funeral. Shortly after, Seung Cheon finds out that Song-guk's company shares are being bought by Jun-tae and immediately orders Moon-ki to find out where Jun-tae got the money. Apart from that, he also asks Moon-ki to investigate Dong-pil's business. It doesn't take long for him to find out that Dong-pil's company has been doing tax evasion for years. Elsewhere, Seung-ah finally gets a promotion to move up in her workplace. Lee Chol just got a call from a famous comic company, and soon he got a loan enough money to buy a house. From a distance, Seung Cheon is determined to return with his family after he earns 100 billion. Knowing that the police were investigating the tax evasion case of her father's company, Yo-jin immediately realized that Seung Cheon was behind it. She is angry because Seung Cheon refuses to cooperate with her and still grays against Dong-pil, who kicked out his family. Meanwhile, Jun-tae, satisfied after he has succeeded in controlling part of Song-guk's company shares, informs Hyun-do of his achievement. At the same time, Seung Cheon meets a man named Alex Boo, who financed Jun-tae's stock purchase. Then Seung Cheon asks Alex to choose the more advantageous side since Jun-tae is only Hyun-do's brother-in-law, whereas he is Hyun-do's son who will become the heir to the Dosan Group company. Not long after, Jun-tae received news that Alex Boo had withdrawn his money, indicating that Alex was more in favor of Hyun-do's son. Elsewhere, Joo-hee, curious about her father's death, tries to ask the maid who used to work at their house about the last person her father met. However, the maid did not provide any information because she had been bribed by Mr. Go, not to mention Tae-yong's arrival. That night, Hyun-do has no idea that Seung Cheon, now Tae-yong, can convince Alex Boo to withdraw his money and irritate Jun-tae. Then Seung Cheon says he did it to reduce public suspicions over reports that Hyun-do caused Song-guk's company to go bankrupt. Seeing Tae-yong's attitude, which was strange again because he started discussing the company, made Young-sin curious about what had happened to him. The next day, Joo-hee asks Hyun-do for help investigating her father's death, but Hyun-do gives her a check instead, and she flatly refuses. On the other hand, an angry Yo-jin is seen slapping Seung Cheon because he threatened to report tax evasion by her father's company to the police. Seung Cheon says he can't accept Dong-pil's abusive treatment to his family. Unbeknownst to them, Jun-tae monitors their fight from the CCTV camera. Even he already knows that there are some recordings that Hyun-do deliberately deleted. After Song-guk's death, Gum-seok tells Joo-hee that their father did not leave any inheritance to her. Tae-yong, who happens to be there, suddenly feels irritated because Joo-hee is being treated unfairly by his brothers. Then he says he knows a good lawyer and will help her get her inheritance. Soon after, Joo-hee and Tae-yong meet Alex Boo, who is very impressed with his foresight because he can distinguish between real and fake paintings. Meanwhile, Seung Cheon takes Moon-ki to Seung-ah's salon and gives her his phone number so she can call him if she is in trouble. Unbeknownst to them, Jong-gun is in the salon spying on Seung Cheon on orders from Yo-jin, who wants to try to find his weaknesses. After seeking information from his lawyer, Seung Cheon tells Joo-hee that she must give up her father's inheritance because Song-guk is heavily in debt. In fact, the house Joo-hee lives in is going up for auction by Gum-seok. One night, Tae-yong gets into a fight with Dong-pil, who is flirting with Sun-hye. An emotional Tae-yong even takes the wheel of Dong-pil's car and takes him somewhere. Then Seung-ah asks Seung Cheon for help to stop Tae-yong's actions until finally, he managed to stop the car Tae-yong was driving. Soon after, Seung Cheon asks Dong-pil to forget about the incident or else his company's secrets will be exposed. On the other hand, Yo-jin also tries to dodge Tae-yong's attack and reports him to the police so that Seung Cheon obeys her orders. Meanwhile, Jun-tae continues to search for information because he suspects that Tae-yong is the culprit in Song-guk's murder. Later that night, Jun-tae asks Seung Cheon questions about Song-guk's death. Not long after, several people claiming to be the police arrested him and took him somewhere. Apparently, it was one part of the welcoming ceremony for Seung Cheon joining the Amicus Club, a club of influential conglomerates and businessmen. There, he sees some of his school friends, including Jong-gun and Yo-jin. As Seung Cheon is about to leave, he is given a drink laced with sleeping pills by Jun-tae. Then Jun-tae asks him about Song-guk's death, but he says he didn't kill Song-guk. It turns out that Yo-jin eavesdrops on the conversation. Elsewhere, Tae-yong gives Ju-hee a stun gun so she can protect herself because she lives alone. However, Tae-yong feels strange when he sees a photo of Song-guk there. The next morning, Seung Cheon has a nightmare that Tae-yong killed his family. Then he asks Moonki what he thinks of Tae-yong. Moonki revealed that Tae-yong is very stubborn and sometimes annoying, but actually, he is kind and caring. Moonki also tells Seung Cheon that Tae-yong always panics when he sees blood. The next day, Yo-jin visits Hyun-do and tells him about Jun-tae's treatment of Seung Cheon because she realizes that if Seung Cheon gets into trouble, then her plans to make the Dosan group's fortune will fail. Yo-jin says that she wants to get engaged to Seung Cheon. Meanwhile, at the convenience store, Seung Cheon deliberately angers Tae-yong to see how far he can control his anger. However, Seung Cheon finds no sign that Tae-yong can kill someone. At home, Hyun-do is angry with Jun-tae for treating Tae-yong like a criminal, making him beat Jun-tae with a stick. Then Yong-sin tries to quell her husband's anger and says that Jun-tae has always followed his orders to help the incompetent Tae-yong. Shortly after, he accuses Yong-sin of wanting to control the Dosan group's assets. On the other hand, Ju-hee, who has been kicked out of the house, decides to stay in a hotel, while Gum-seok only gives 500 million won to her and breaks the family ties between them. Elsewhere, Seung Cheon is on a historical tour with Club Amicus, and he finds out that Jun-tae has bullied Tae-yong since he was a teenager. In the club, he learns how to play stock properly. On tour, Yo-jin warns Seung Cheon to be more careful as Jun-tae is suspicious of Song-guk's death. She also said Ju-hee should not hear rumors about her father's murder. A few days later, Lee Chol was at the office of a well-known webtoon company for an interview. Unfortunately, the manager judged that he was not optimal at drawing after the accident he had experienced. While at home, he is also frustrated about Tae-yong's tuition fees. However, Tae-yong said he would not go to college and chose to work. At Hyun-do's residence, Yong-sin meets Jun-tae, who was previously beaten by her husband. Moments later, she notices that Tae-yong's jacket, which was supposed to be burned, is being sold online by her maid. Then she asks her maid to return the coat because she is sure that Hyun-do is hiding something. At night, Ju-hee meets Seung Cheon with Tae-yong at a cafe. Seung Cheon asks her to treat him as a friend and to let him know if she is having trouble. When going home, Ju-hee gets a call from her former maid, who asks her for money in exchange for information about her father's death. A few days later, Hyun-do seems to like Seung Cheon's advertising idea at a Dosan group meeting. Alex Bu even compliments him and tells Hyun-do that his son will become a great businessman. At a cafe, Yoo-jin accidentally sees Ju-hee, who meets Tae-yong before giving the money she had in a suitcase and plans to hand over the money to her former maid, who will reveal her father's death. Then Yo-jin immediately calls Seung Cheon to prevent Ju-hee from meeting her former maid. At a crossroads, Seung Cheon sees the maid crossing the street to meet Ju-hee, but unexpectedly, the maid was suddenly hit by a truck and died. He realizes it was Hyun-do's doing, so he quickly leaves the place even though Ju-hee sees him. Seeing the blood, Tae-yong's anxiety disorder recurs and makes Ju-hee panic so that she loses her suitcase. Elsewhere, Yong-sin is on the phone with Jun-tae after learning that the bloodstain on Tae-yong's suit is Song-guk's. Hearing this, Jun-tae plans to use this to threaten Hyun-do so that he ends up giving all of Tae-yong's property and shares to Jun-tae. Not only that, but Jun-tae also asked Hyun-do to send his son to America. Meanwhile, Ju-hee must now leave the hotel after her money is stolen. On the other hand, Tae-yong feels the world is unfair to him, especially after seeing his parents work hard to pay for Lee Chol's treatment. Amid his despair, Alex Bu offers Tae-yong a quick way to make money over the phone. At the Hyun-do residence, Seung Cheon is seen being beaten with a stick by Jun-tae. The scene then shows Jun-tae's past, revealing that he was the shooter that killed James, but he blamed Tae-yong, who was in America at the time. Tae-yong, still innocent, is forced to admit that he shot James because Jun-tae threatened to kill him. In the present, Yo-jin goes to a pajama party and meets Ju-hee, who thinks that the suitcase Yo-jin is carrying is her suitcase. After proving that her accusations were false, Yo-jin said that the bankruptcy of her father's company was karma because in the past, Yo-jin, who was still Nara at that time, felt hurt. In fact, Yo-jin did take Ju-hee's chosen suitcase, and instead of returning it to her, Yo-jin gives the suitcase to a homeless woman on the side of the road. On the other hand, after Hyun-do manages to secure Tae-yong's jacket, which is covered in Song-guk's blood, he must send Seung Cheon to America because Hyun-do doesn't want his son to get into trouble again. Before Seung Cheon leaves for America, he texts Ju-hee and visits his family's place to ensure they are okay. After seeing his parents and older sister happy with Tae-yong, he rushed to the airport. Not long after, Ju-hee came to say goodbye. But after meeting Seung Cheon, who is now Tae-yong, she quickly realizes that her former maid recognized Tae-yong when she was about to cross the street, so she panicked and was killed by a truck. Joo-hee immediately assumed that it was Tae-yong who was seen by her former maid on the night of her father's death and was the person who had killed her father. Joo-hee, who was annoyed, then demanded that Tae-yong confess that he was the one who killed her father. However, Joo-hee was quickly stopped by the Hwang family's guards and whisked away from the scene before causing a commotion at the airport. Seeing her reaction, Seung Cheon becomes even sadder because now the girl he loves hates him. 10 years later, Tae-yong, who is still Seung Cheon, conducts a job interview at a company. Even though his abilities and requirements meet the classification to be accepted by the company seems to look down on him because he comes from a poor family. After the interview, Tae-yong left the company. At the same time, he saw an advertisement board showing Yo-jin's advertisement, which is now a successful beauty product businesswoman. Meanwhile, at Yo-jin's office, Jong-gun, who now runs a business in the entertainment sector, is seen trying to persuade her to be a guest star on his variety show. Suddenly, Joo-hee, who has worked in the investigative division of a TV station, calls Jong-gun and warns him and Yo-jin about her team's plan to carry out an investigation of gambling conducted by Amicus. The Amicus party hosted by the conglomerates was being held in a very lively place. Joo-hee and Tae-yong, who are conducting an investigation, are seen at the party and disguised as waiters to get evidence of gambling by the conglomerates. Not long after, Jun-tae and his friend come and join the party. Seung Cheon, who has turned into a young delinquent, is also seen enjoying the Amicus party while drinking and dancing with several women. At the same time, Yo-jin comes to the party with Jong-gun and immediately meets Seung Cheon, who has become her fiancé. On the other hand, Joo-hee managed to record the gambling activity at the party in a room. Unfortunately, one of her investigative team is caught by party security, so she tries to escape. At the same time, Seung Cheon takes Joo-hee to a safer place. However, she is quite surprised by the change in his appearance and demeanor when she thinks he is in America. Then he asks whether Joo-hee has been looking for him all along because she still suspects him of being her father's killer. Seung Cheon immediately clarified that he didn't do that because nothing would benefit him. Moments later, Tae-yong arrives at the venue and asks Seung Cheon, who is now embracing Joo-hee, to stay away from her. Meanwhile, party security, who knew that Joo-hee and Tae-yong were members of the investigation team, immediately dragged them out of the party after Yo-jin informed security about their whereabouts. At that time, Seung Cheon accidentally meets Jun-tae, who still treats him roughly. However, unlike before, he now looks oblivious and doesn't mind Jun-tae's rude attitude toward him. After Jun-tae leaves, Yo-jin, annoyed with Seung Cheon, decides to leave there, making him catch her up. When they're both in the car, Yo-jin asks why Seung Cheon didn't fight back when Jun-tae put him down. Then he casually answers to keep her calm. Annoyed by Seung Cheon's answer, Yo-jin suddenly stops the car, and not long after, Hyun-do's men arrest Seung Cheon and take him to meet Hyun-do. When Seung Cheon is taken to his house, a female butler and Young-sin are surprised by the change in his appearance and demeanor. In his father's room, after Hyun-do asks why he decided to return to Korea, Seung Cheon explains that he is bored and lonely in America. Hyun-do is also curious about Seung Cheon's desire to become heir to the Dosan Group company. He casually replies that there's nothing else he can do but relax since he no longer owns shares in Dosan and his father isn't providing any help while he is in America. Moving on to Joo-hee's residence, she is seen opening a box of files on her father's murder which she has kept for 10 years because she is still trying to find out who killed her father. Joo-hee also suspects the involvement of several people in the case of her father's death which are all related to the Dosan Group. On the other hand, Tae-yong receives a call from Seung Cheon, who now only spends his daily life getting drunk until morning and sleeping on the streets. Knowing that Seung Cheon's life has been ruined, Young-sin asks Jun-tae not to worry about his presence threatening his position as heir to the Dosan Group. One day, Seung Cheon unhesitatingly gets drunk in public and takes a girl to a hotel, making the reporters rush to cover the story. In fact, when he found out reporters were following him, Seung Cheon kissed her on purpose. After entering a hotel room, it was seen that several people were waiting there and gave applause for what he had done. At that time, he only pretends to be drunk and brings a woman who turns out to be Moon-ki, his personal assistant, to attract the attention of reporters. Moments later, Seung Cheon has a meeting with his team and explains that he purposely made his life look ruined so Jun-tae won't see him as an opponent. Like when he kept getting assassination attempts in America which left his body still with some scars from the attack. The assassination attempt also made Seung Cheon finally get engaged to Yo-jin because she had saved him. Even he also gave him his golden spoon to her. Meanwhile, Seung Cheon's real family life looks better after Lee Chol opens a souvenir business in a shop offered by An Mu-in. The next day, news about the son of the owner of the Dosan Group using illegal drugs was broadcast in the media, causing the Dosan Group stock to plummet. As it turns out, this is part of Seung Cheon's plan to buy most of Dosan Group's shares. Meanwhile, at Seung Cheon's family home, Tae-yong is seen cleaning up some of his old books until he finds Seung Cheon's old note about a golden spoon. Moving on to the ongoing Dosan Group Board of Directors meeting, many representatives of the Board of Directors are asking Jun-tae to step down from the CEO position because they find his performance unsatisfactory after letting a news story about Seung Cheon get out in the media, causing the company's stock to plummet. However, Jun-tae doesn't seem to accept the decision. He thinks it is unfair. Moments later, Seung Cheon walks into the room and provides some evidence that Jun-tae committed crimes against the Dosan Group. Hearing this, Jun-tae denies all accusations and thinks Seung Cheon has no right to speak at the meeting because he does not own shares in the Dosan Group. Hyun-do then explains that Seung Cheon, currently known as Tae-yong, has the right to speak at board meetings because he has become the largest shareholder in Dosan Group. Jun-tae, who was very shocked and angry, immediately left the meeting room to contact Joo-hee and told her that Tae-yong was her father's killer 10 years ago. After getting the call, Joo-hee immediately leaves the office and meets Seung Cheon to ask for an exclusive interview about the life journey of the Dosan Group's son. Unfortunately, he refused the interview request, making Joo-hee try to stop him from leaving there. Suddenly, Yo-jin arrives and warns her not to disturb her fiancé. Joo-hee, who still wants Seung Cheon to be interviewed, finally meets Young-sin and asks for her help to persuade him to agree to be interviewed. After meeting Young-sin, Joo-hee, still at Hyun-do's residence, immediately entered Seung Cheon's room to look for a clue and saw a locked safe. At night, Yo-jin and her father have dinner at Hyun-do's house to discuss her relationship. In a dinner conversation, Young-sin explains why her family must agree that Seung Cheon, known as Tae-yong, must marry Yo-jin, the daughter of a businessman with much smaller assets than the Dosan Group. Hearing this, Dong-pil is speechless, and Yo-jin also feels hurt after Young-sin mentions her ordinary beauty. At that time, Seung Cheon stood up for Yoo-jin and told Young-sin that Yoo-jin had helped him while he was in America to survive. After dinner, she hugs him and thanks him for standing up for her in front of Young-sin. Soon after, Seung Cheon quickly lets go of the hug and says that he did it because he sees Yoo-jin as a co-worker who will be of mutual benefit in the future. Yoo-jin, who has fallen in love with him, is silent as she watches Seung Cheon leave. In Yo-jin's room, she still looks annoyed with Seung Cheon, who thinks of herself as just an ordinary business partner. While looking at Seung Cheon's gold spoon, she mutters that he doesn't know the one rule where the owner of the gold spoon must really keep the gold spoon from being used by others because anyone who uses someone else's gold spoon will get a memory of the owner of the spoon. In the morning, Seung Cheon suddenly shows up at TV station Joo-hee's office, and Tae-yong is working to do an interview that he had previously refused. Seung Cheon's arrival as Tae-yong, the young CEO of the Dosan Group, makes the employees at the TV station welcome him, and one of the managers there asks the real Tae-yong, who works part-time, to buy coffee. Because Tae-yong took too long to buy the coffee, when he returned, Seung Cheon had finished a meeting discussing the time of the interview and seemed about to leave the TV station office soon. The manager scolded him for being gone too long. When Seung Cheon saw that, he realized that if he hadn't traded his life, he would be in Tae-yong's shoes. When Seung Cheon returns home, he meets Jun-tae, who reminds him to self-reflect on killing others. Then he says that Jun-tae is the real killer. Even he notices the shirt Jun-tae wore when he killed a student in America. Because of this, Jun-tae is annoyed and wonders how Seung Cheon can remember the incident, so he finally decides to calm down in the bar. Sometime later, Young-sin arrives to pick up a drunken Jun-tae and asks his younger brother to fight again for the CEO position of the Dosan Group. However, Jun-tae tells Young-sin to kill Seung Cheon, also known as Tae-yong, so he doesn't get in his way. At the Dosan Group office, when Hyun-do and some of his employees are seen discussing company developments, suddenly, an angry Young-sin enters the room and stops the meeting. After all the employees left, Hyun-do calmly asked about the purpose of his wife's visit. Young-sin, who owns some shares in Dosan Group, reveals that she will get in the way if he gives Seung Cheon a high position. Hearing his wife threaten him, Hyun-do tells Young-sin that he already knows that Jun-tae is her son, not his younger brother, as she has always said. Young-sin, who feels threatened, finally just chooses to remain silent. Meanwhile, Seung Cheon and Moon-ki investigate Jun-tae's involvement in the murder of Song-guk, Joo-hee's father, after Seung Cheon finds some evidence. When Seung Cheon opens his safe from Joo-hee's room, he can see the safe's password from a hidden camera he put in when Joo-hee entered his room some time ago. The next day, Hyun-do, who is in his office, asks his male secretary to call Seung Cheon. However, the secretary informs him that Seung Cheon is not in his room because he has an important meeting, which makes Hyun-do curious. It turned out that Seung Cheon was at a restaurant to meet Tae-yong, who was applying for a job at the Dosan Group company. Not long after, Moon-ki accompanied Seung Cheon's family, who came to the restaurant after receiving an invitation from Seung Cheon. However, Hyun-do, curious about Seung Cheon's important meeting, also comes to the restaurant, so he joins Seung Cheon's family event. While eating, Hyun-do notices that Seung Cheon, whom he knows as Tae-yong or his son, has the same eating habits as Lee Chol, which makes him a little surprised and jealous. At home, Seung Cheon meets Hyun-do and asks about his father's intention to visit the family for a meal with him earlier. Hyun-do replies that he wants to know why Seung Cheon left his job and chose to eat with other people's families. Hyun-do explains that empathy is the biggest enemy of many people who want to be successful because empathy can eliminate the desire to compete with someone. Seung Cheon looks sad to hear his words and says he feels jealous of Lee Chol's family, who always trust their children, before he finally leaves Hyun-do. A few days later, the TV station crew is at the Hyun-do residence for an exclusive interview with Seung Cheon. As the interview begins, Joo-hee sneaks into Seung Cheon's room and opens the safe with the password. Unfortunately, she finds no evidence regarding her father's murder in the safe, and instead, she finds a book filled with Mr. Smile and a book that he gave to Seung Cheon, who has not exchanged fate with Tae-yong. Unknown to Joo-hee, Seung Cheon entered the room and asked why she opened his safe. Then Joo-hee asks him, who has now become Tae-yong, about the book she once gave him. Seung Cheon calmly replies that he stole the book because he loved Joo-hee when he was in high school. Seung Cheon then reminds Joo-hee not to do anything reckless by barging into other people's rooms. However, she insists that she will do anything to reveal the truth about her father's death because she believes that Seung Cheon, also known as Tae-yong, was involved in the murder. Not long after, Seung Cheon gets a message from Yojin showing that she is eating with Tae-yong using his gold spoon. Upon seeing the message, he panics and rushes to meet her, asking Joo-hee to leave his room. Seung Cheon looks angry when he confronts Yojin and asks her the purpose of doing this. She explains that it was a warning to him not to go near Joo-hee, or she will make Tae-yong use his golden spoon so that Tae-yong can get his memory. On the other hand, Joo-hee, who was in her room, remembered a book with Mr. Smile, and Seung Cheon's safe reminded her of her nickname as Mr. Smile when she was little. Turning to Seung Cheon's parents, they are now at Hyun-do's residence to deliver food orders. Before they leave, Lee Chol accidentally sees a set of tools for drawing comics that he has wanted for a long time, so he asks Young-sin for permission to look at them. As it turns out, Hyun-do had deliberately put the drawing equipment there to get Lee Chol's attention. Meanwhile, at the Hyun-do office, he deliberately invites Tae-yong, known as Seung Cheon, to offer him a job with a high position and high salary at the Dosan Group company. However, he seems hesitant to accept the job, so he asks Hyun-do for some time to consider the offer. Meanwhile, Joo-hee meets Jun-tae at a cafe to ask him to be an informant because the TV station where she currently works plans to rebroadcast the incident of her father's murder. Joo-hee also tries to provoke Jun-tae by taking off the blazer she is wearing so he can see a picture of Mr. Smile on his t-shirt while calling him Mr. Smile. Hearing himself called Mr. Smile, Jun-tae looks angry and pulls Joo-hee's hair while threatening her. Luckily, Seung Cheon comes to save her and says that he will kill Jun-tae if he hurts Joo-hee. An enraged Jun-tae then punches Seung Cheon, causing them to fight. When Seung Cheon is cornered, Joo-hee uses her electric shock device and urges him to get out of there. After being far from the cafe, Seung Cheon asks her not to have anything to do with Jun-tae, who is not afraid to hurt others. After the cafe incident, Seung Cheon invites Tae-yong and Joo-hee to work together to reveal Jun-tae as Song-guk's killer. At Joo-hee's house, Seung Cheon provides some evidence about the murder that Jun-tae committed by scapegoating Tae-yong's name before Seung Cheon changes his fate. Seung Cheon then plans to find the person Jun-tae ordered to kill Song-guk. Meanwhile, Tae-yong and Joo-hee's task is to search the CCTV at the time of Song-guk's murder. To kick off his plan, Seung Cheon and Moon-ki are spotted at a nightclub to meet Jun-tae's confidant. Meanwhile, Jun-tae is now sneaking into Joo-hee's house and finds evidence that he was involved in Song-guk's murder, so he plans to kill Joo-hee. Finally, Jun-tae hides around Joo-hee's house until she comes home, and he immediately grabs a rock to attack her. Before the action begins, suddenly Joo-hee gets a call from Seung Cheon informing her that he will come to her house. Not long after, Seung Cheon visits Joo-hee at her house and gives her the information he got from Jun-tae's confidante. Having been busy all day, Seung Cheon looks tired and sleepy, so he falls asleep on her shoulder. The next morning, Seung Cheon wakes up earlier than Joo-hee and is seen preparing breakfast. Tae-yong, who came to Joo-hee's place that morning, felt jealous after seeing Seung Cheon there. While having breakfast together, Tae-yong, still curious about the gold spoon's record, suddenly asks Seung Cheon that, which makes him panic, so he decides to leave immediately. Seeing his strange behavior, Tae-yong becomes even more suspicious and curious about the golden spoon. The scene switches to Hyun-do, who receives a report that the real killer of Song-guk is Jun-tae, not Tae-yong. Because of that, Hyun-do goes to Jun-tae's place with a brown folder. At a restaurant, Joo-hee is seen having lunch with her female senior, and she sees a homeless woman carrying a suitcase that closely resembles the one she lost 10 years ago. Joo-hee then decides to meet the homeless woman, but she cannot pursue her after losing track of her. Sometime after, Jun-tae turns himself into the police for the murder he committed against Song-guk, causing various media outlets to broadcast the news. Seung Cheon is shocked by this and wonders why Jun-tae would turn himself into the police voluntarily. Meanwhile, Tae-yong, who is walking while thinking about his life, suddenly sees a crystal ball rolling toward him. Then he takes the crystal ball and returns it to the old lady selling antiquities, who offers a gold spoon like the one Seung Cheon had. Out of curiosity about the spoon, Tae-yong finally buys it, and now he realizes that he is the real Tae-yong after checking how the golden spoon works in Seung Cheon's notebook. Knowing this, when Tae-yong delivers the ordered food to Hyun-do's residence, he now has a gold spoon and asks the waiter there to give him food and eats the food given using his gold spoon. On another occasion, Tae-yong met Joo-hee and asked her to chat together during a break. He realizes he can change his fate again, so he seeks revenge on Seung Cheon by telling Joo-hee not to give him any gifts on his birthday. Then he asked her not to answer his declaration of love because, according to him, being her close friend was enough to make him happy. Switch to Hyun-do, who was able to attract the hearts of many important people in Korea to launch his business and build the Dosan Group. With his ingenuity, he can always give various kinds of irresistible gifts so that he can easily ask all of his relations for help when he is in trouble. However, his first failure was when he tried to win the heart of Lee Chol, who likes comics, because Lee Chol refused his gift. At Seung Cheon family house, everyone looks like they're having dinner together. However, Tae-yong, who already knew his true identity, seemed angry, making Seung-hye, Seung Cheon's mother, feel very sad. When he walks into his room, Tae-yong sees his golden spoon and is determined to regain his position as the only son of the Dosan Group CEO Seung Cheon had traded for. Meanwhile, Seung Cheon already knew that Tae-yong had come to his residence and eaten food using a gold spoon, so he asked the female butler not to allow anyone to come and eat food at his house. On the other hand, Yong-sin now seems sad after Jun-tae is imprisoned, so she grudges against Seung Cheon. Moments later, the female butler visits Yong-sin and reports Seung Cheon's earlier requests. Hearing the report, she deliberately invited Tae-yong to her house and prepared food for him. Then she asks why Seung Cheon forbade Tae-yong to come and eat at their house. Hearing that, Tae-yong becomes more convinced with his suspicions that Seung Cheon has traded his fortunes after hearing Yong-sin's question. Then he ate the food using the magic gold spoon. Unknown to them, it turns out that Hyun-do saw Tae-yong eating food at his house, so he calls Seung Cheon to let him know. Seung Cheon seems even more agitated after hearing the news, so he decides to go to his poor family's house. When Seung Cheon came, he only met with his mother, and after Tae-yong returned, he immediately explained his arrival to invite Tae-yong to eat because Tae-yong had asked several times to eat at his house. The next day, when Joo-hee is at the office, she suddenly gets a call from her senior, who has managed to find her luggage at the restaurant they usually go to, so she rushes to the restaurant. When she got there, Joo-hee opened the suitcase but did not find her money and immediately asked the homeless woman about her money. The homeless woman said that Joo-hee had very little money and could not meet her needs as Goom Suk-ja, a member of the Gangnam District Council. Hearing that confession, Joo-hee and her senior thought that the homeless woman was mentally disturbed. However, when the woman explains that Goom Suk-ja is currently her servant, she searches for the golden spoon until now to change her fate again. Then she asks Suk-ja to confirm if the spoon in question is a golden spoon that can make someone rich. As if someone understands her, Suk-ja asks Joo-hee about the whereabouts of the old woman selling antiques. At Seung Cheon's luxurious residence, Tae-yong comes to fulfill Seung Cheon's previous invitation. When he saw Tae-yong take out his gold spoon, Seung Cheon looked calm, as if he had planned something. Shortly after, they get into an argument after Seung Cheon asks Tae-yong if he is willing to leave his family now to get rich. Then Tae-yong said that it was Seung Cheon was willing to trade his family for wealth. Finally, Seung Cheon asked Tae-yong to immediately eat the food that was prepared and waited for his reaction after learning that his golden spoon had been exchanged by Seung Cheon for a fake one when Seung Cheon came to his poor family's house. However, suddenly Tae-yong discouraged him from eating the food and left there. An astonished Seung Cheon immediately catches up with him and angrily asks him to quickly eat all the food he prepared. But Tae-yong insists on rejecting it and says that he will not exchange a family that truly loves him for wealth. He confirms that he is ready to be a Seung Cheon forever. After the fight, he left Seung Cheon, who looked angry with himself. Seung Cheon then decides to go to a bar to drink and forget about the previous fight between him and Tae-yong. After Yo-jin came to see him, Seung Cheon told her everything that happened, and now he feels defeated by Tae-yong, who dared to choose family over wealth. Yo-jin then reminds Seung Cheon that it's not wrong for poor people like them to choose wealth because their previous life was so difficult. Feeling that someone understands him, Seung Cheon, who starts to get drunk, finally goes with her to a hotel. In the hotel room, they do the unthinkable, but when Seung Cheon remembers Joo-hee, he rushes off, leaving Yo-jin there. Meanwhile, Joo-hee is seen walking home to her house while thinking about the golden spoon that the homeless woman talked about earlier and the strangeness of Tae-yong she knows, so she thinks that the Tae-yong she knows right now is Seung Cheon. Arriving at her house, Joo-hee saw Seung Cheon waiting for her in front of the house and immediately hugged her after knowing she had come home, saying he had missed her. Then Joo-hee asks if it was Seung Cheon who hugged her. Hearing her question, he immediately left there. Some time passes, and now the servants at the Hyun-do residence seem busy because it is the birthday of Seung Cheon, now known as Tae-yong. During this busy life, he sees Taeyong coming to deliver the ordered food. He is surprised because he remembered the Golden Spoon's rule not to meet each other's parents on birthdays. Unfortunately, before Seung Cheon can prevent this, Hyun-do arrives and sees him and Taeyong. However, nothing happens because Hyun-do keeps calling him as Taeyong, so he thinks the rule isn't right. Sometime later, without Seung Cheon noticing, his parents came, and his and Taeyong's fates were exchanged again because Lee Chol called him by his real name. Knowing that he had changed his fate, Seung Cheon immediately exchanged his cell phone with Taeyong and sent a message to him to agree to Hyun-do's plan, which would split the company's shares so that Taeyong would not get into trouble. After finishing delivering the food, Seung Cheon, who is now with his father, said goodbye to leave because he wanted to meet the old woman selling gold spoons. Unfortunately, he did not find the whereabouts of the grandmother. Seung Cheon, who is confused, then meets his mother there. Joo-hee, who was walking towards Seung Cheon's family's house, was suddenly greeted by Lee Chol, who had just delivered the order. They finally walked together to his house. Arriving at the front of the house, Joo-hee sees Lee Chol entering several passwords that are the same as the password for the safe belonging to Seung Cheon, now known as Taeyong. Realizing this, she asks about the passcode combination of Seung Cheon and Seung Ah's birthdays reversed. Wanting to confirm her suspicions about Seung Cheon, she immediately bids farewell to Lee Chol to go to the Dosan Group company. In a room, Yo-jin, who doesn't know yet that Seung Cheon and Taeyong have exchanged fortunes again, is still waiting for Seung Cheon to arrive. After Taeyong arrives, Yo-jin slaps him for being upset about having been left at the hotel alone the night before. However, he looks taken aback and doesn't understand what she is talking about until he starts getting flashes of Seung Cheon's previous memory. Seeing his strangeness in front of her, Yo-jin finally realized that Seung Cheon had switched places with Taeyong again. At Seung Cheon's house, while eating with his family, he suddenly gets a call from Yo-jin, so he moves away from the dining table to answer the call. When the call was picked up, she congratulated him on returning to his real family. Seung Cheon is surprised to hear this and asks how Yo-jin knew that. Then she casually explains that she had met Taeyong and thought that either Seung Cheon or Taeyong had met each other's parents on their birthdays. Seung Cheon then tells about the Golden Spoon rule that didn't apply when Taeyong met Hyun-do earlier. Then she assumes that Taeyong is not Hyun-do's biological child, and finally, he asks Yo-jin to change fate with Taeyong again. However, because Yo-jin is still annoyed, she simply replies that it was a fitting punishment for him for leaving her at the hotel before she hangs up. After that, Yo-jin is surprised by Joo-hee's presence and starts to worry that Joo-hee overheard her conversation with Seung Cheon. She frantically asks why Joo-hee is there, and Joo-hee simply replies that she wants to wish Taeyong a happy birthday. Switching to prison, Jun-tae is seen being visited by Young-sin. Then he tells how he finally turned himself in as a suspect in Song-guk's murder. He explains that the night Song-guk was killed, he did not meet Song-guk, but Hyun-do threatens to admit that he killed Song-guk and that if he refuses, his secret when he killed students in America will be exposed by Hyun-do. Finally, Jun-tae makes Hyun-do's wish after he guarantees that he will help Jun-tae to be released from prison soon. On the other hand, when Seung Cheon was walking on the pavement while thinking about returning to being Taeyong, he was suddenly surprised by Joo-hee driving a car and inviting him to the beach. Meanwhile, Yo-jin begins to find out the truth about Taeyong's birth father and meets Young-sin to ask about Taeyong's birth mother. Then she explains that Taeyong's biological mother was an insane woman because she had an affair with Hyun-do's best friend and always asked him for a divorce. After getting this information, Yo-jin immediately contacted Seung Cheon. However, he always rejected her call because he was currently at the beach and didn't really enjoy being with Joo-hee. Moments later, she tries to find out what Seung Cheon is in front of her by asking a few questions about things they've done together. All of Seung Cheon's affirmative answers, even though it's wrong, make Joo-hee realize that he has switched places with Taeyong again, as she had overheard in Yo-jin's previous phone conversation. Even she finds out the truth, she tries to cover it up and goes back to having fun with Seung Cheon. Some time passed, and Joo-hee finally said that she knew Seung Cheon had exchanged fortunes with Taeyong. He is surprised to hear her confession, upsetting him. Then Seung Cheon tells Joo-hee not to bring it up again, leaving her alone on the beach. As the sun began to set, Joo-hee seemed still on the beach contemplating. Suddenly, Seung Cheon meets her again and admits he has left his family and her to be rich. Hearing the confession, Joo-hee hugs him and says she misses the real Seung Cheon. At night, Yo-jin is seen still thinking about Seung Cheon, who has returned to his original life. Although she initially thinks of Seung Cheon as an ordinary business partner, now she really falls in love with him. Meanwhile, Seung Cheon still spends time with Joo-hee in the car after returning from the beach. Without them realizing it, Yo-jin is not far from there and sees them having fun, making her jealous. Feeling annoyed with Seung Cheon, Yo-jin meets Lee Chol and invites him to eat together because she has something important to say. On the other hand, Taeyong has now returned to his luxurious life and seems to be enjoying red wine. Suddenly, he accidentally causes the red wine bottle to fall and spill on the floor, which makes him think back to the flash of Seong-guk's death, so he immediately runs out of the room to meet Moon-ki. Elsewhere, Hyun-do is now seen in an art museum belonging to Alex Boo. Meanwhile, when Joo-hee notices something about the gold spoon, she immediately calls Seung Cheon and asks him to meet her around where the old lady selling antiques usually resides. On the other hand, Tae-yong, who had a panic attack after seeing the spilled pool of red wine, remembered how Joo-hee's father had died. At that time, he looks angry at Seong-guk after discussing the events in America, but he decides to leave Seong-guk's residence. After Tae-yong left, he changed his mind and finally returned to see Seong-guk because he was curious about the complete story that happened to him in America. Arriving at the house, Tae-yong had seen Seong-guk lying in a pool of blood, so his anxiety disorder suddenly recurred and made him semi-conscious. However, in his memory, he catches a glimpse of Hyun-do's face before he finally collapses. After a long wait, Seung Cheon finally comes to see Joo-hee. Knowing that he has 3 chances to choose who his parents are, Joo-hee asks Seung Cheon not to choose to be Tae-yong. Unfortunately, he could not grant her request because Seung Cheon exchanged fortunes again with Tae-yong after the clock struck 12 at night. Inside the museum, Hyun-do heads to a display of golden spoons, which reveals that he is also a gold spoon user who can change his life. 20 years ago, Hyun-do was actually Kwon Yo-han, his best friend. Yo-han, who does not come from a conglomerate family like him, feels jealous of his best friend's life as the heir to the Dosan group. Yo-han's jealousy peaked when Hyun-do and Tae-yong's biological mother married and became a happy family with a son named Tae-yong. One day, he meets an old woman selling antiques who offers the gold spoon, so Yo-han buys and uses it until his dream of becoming Hyun-do comes true. Whereas Joo-hee now feels confused because previously she was sure that it was Seung Cheon in front of her, but now she is actually meeting Seung Cheon, who has turned into Tae-yong. Seung Cheon then convinces Joo-hee that the Tae-yong in front of her is Seung Cheon. Having switched places again, he rushes back to Hyun-do's residence to meet Tae-yong, who now looks confused about why he's suddenly at someone else's house. Seung Cheon then explains that they switched places again, and he also told Tae-yong that Hyun-do wasn't his real father. Unfortunately, their conversation had to stop after Hyun-do came. At Seung Cheon's house, Lee Chol seems to be thinking about something after he meets Yo-jin at the restaurant. When meeting her, Lee Chol gets a gold spoon belonging to Seung Cheon, and Yo-jin asks him to eat the food provided using the gold spoon if he wants to know what Seung Cheon has been doing all this time. Out of curiosity, Lee Chol finally decided to eat using the spoon, and suddenly, he got a memory of Seung Cheon changing his fate with Tae-yong, so he felt very sad and disappointed for the actions of his son, who was willing to leave his family for the sake of wealth. The next day, Seung Cheon, who was in the office lobby, saw his father waiting for him to invite him to have lunch together, which made him very happy. Unfortunately, Seung Cheon finally refuses Lee Chol's invitation after Hyun-do comes and asks him to come with him. On the way to the meeting place, Seung Cheon still thinks about his father's unusual arrival at the office. Hyun-do, who saw him daydreaming, immediately reprimanded his son. Hyun-do explains that he will meet all his colleagues and introduces Seung Cheon as his successor in the company. Hearing this, Seung Cheon looks happy because his goal to become the heir to the Dosan group will soon be realized. Meanwhile, Joo-hee is now seen with Tae-yong to give him a birthday present. When he opens the gift, Joo-hee calls him by his real name, so he is surprised that she knows everything about him swapping fortunes with Seung Cheon. After a meeting with Hyun-do, Seung Cheon goes to Yo-jin to call off their engagement after he realizes that he can't love her no matter how hard he tries. Unfortunately, Yo-jin doesn't seem to accept this decision until she threatens to give him his golden spoon to Lee Chol. Seung Cheon says that he believes that Yo-jin would not do that because he believes that she actually has a good heart. After he leaves, Yo-jin realizes she made a big mistake by giving the golden spoon to Lee Chol. Because of this, she immediately went to Lee Chol to ask for Seung Cheon's golden spoon. Back at Joo-hee, she is seen eating with Suk-ja and shows her a photo of Yo-jin to see if she is the person who gave a suitcase filled with money to Suk-ja years ago. When she saw the photo, Suk-ja said yes. While eating, she reveals that she is Goom Suk-ja, the real Gangnam counselor and the current Suk-ja known as her servant. It turns out that Suk-ja loves the husband of her maid, who is her first love, so she is willing to change her fate with that of her maid so she can be with the man she loves. However, the man sold her golden spoon, and she couldn't change her fate again until now. Meanwhile, Seung Cheon, who knows that Tae-yong is not Hyun-do's biological child, asks Moon-ki to investigate Hyun-do's background. On the other hand, Seung Cheon's family is seen spending time together in a park. Lee Chol, who already knows the truth, tries to accept that the Seung Cheon with him now is Tae-yong, and he is determined to love Tae-yong like his biological son and forget the real Seung Cheon. When Seung Cheon's family returned home at night, they saw Seung Cheon already in front of their house. Seeing him waiting for his family, Lee Chol, disappointed with him, immediately drives him to leave. Seung Cheon is shocked by his father's harsh treatment, but he can't do anything about it, so he chooses to leave. Even though Seung Cheon has decided to call off the engagement, Yeojin still insists on getting him, and she asks Joo-hee to stay away from him, now known as Taeyong. However, Joo-hee refuses the request because she knows all the truth about Seung Cheon, including Yeojin's past as Nara. However, she doesn't argue everything Joo-hee knows and calmly admits it. The next day, Taeyong is with his friends, chatting about gossip in the Dosan group regarding Yohan, Hyun-do's best friend, who suddenly drifted away. Hearing this, Taeyong begins to suspect that Yohan is related to his biological father. In prison, Jun-tae is seen fighting with Wee-nam, Yeojin's father, so he has to be rushed to the hospital after getting seriously injured. On the other hand, Seung Cheon gets a call from Lee Chol, who asks him to have dinner together. He immediately agrees to the request because he wants to see his father. At the same time, Lee Chol buys a suit for Taeyong even though he knows Taeyong is not his real son. On the way home, Lee Chol, who already knows all of Seung Cheon's secrets, hugs Taeyong and thanks him, who prefers to live with a poor family. Lee Chol also promised to try to be a good father to him. Not long after, Taeyong said goodbye to go to Lee Chol, and he then went to a branch of the Dosan Group company to ask about Yohan. Meanwhile, Young-sin, who is now at the hospital to accompany Jun-tae, is seen calling Hyun-do and telling him of his happiness at having succeeded in delaying the decision to sentence Jun-tae because of his sick condition. Unfortunately, Hyun-do is unhappy to hear the news and thinks his wife has made a big mistake by acquitting a murderer. Hyun-do also explains all the crimes that Jun-tae has committed, including when he was in America, so Young-sin immediately goes to the room where Jun-tae is being treated. Arriving in the room, she finds out that Jun-tae has escaped the hospital. Jun-tae, who had run away from the hospital, immediately called Hyun-do to meet with him. But Hyun-do refuses, so he is annoyed that he has been trying to do everything Hyun-do told him to do in exchange for him being released from prison soon and becoming the heir to the Dosan Group. Hyun-do only explains that he originally had that intention. But Jun-tae failed to wait in prison for a month, so he decided to give the Dosan Group to Seung Cheon, known as Taeyong, who could withstand suffering while exiled to America for 10 years. Knowing that he can't persuade Hyun-do, Jun-tae begins plotting to kill Seung Cheon and secretly follows him. Soon after, Seung Cheon finally meets his father to have dinner at a restaurant. Lee Chol apologizes for how he treated him earlier. While chatting, Seung Cheon suddenly gets a call from Jun-tae, causing him to panic and immediately asks permission to receive the call behind the restaurant. After arriving in a narrow alley behind the restaurant, Jun-tae had been waiting for Seung Cheon and immediately attacked him with a drink bottle. An angry Jun-tae takes out his knife and tries to kill Seung Cheon there. Suddenly, Lee Chol came and tried to block Jun-tae's action until he was stabbed with the knife. Seeing him covered in blood, Jun-tae flees from the scene. Meanwhile, Lee Chol, who begins to lose consciousness, calls Seung Cheon by his real name, which makes him even sadder because all this time, his father has known the truth about him. After Lee Chol was in the hospital, his life couldn't be saved because he had lost a lot of blood. His family, who had gathered there, cried after the doctor broke the sad news. Taeyong then asked Seung Cheon who was the perpetrator of Lee Chol's stabbing, but because he was still devastated, he didn't answer the question and immediately went to look for Jun-tae. News of Lee Chol's death after being attacked by Jun-tae reaches Hyun-do, so he asks his assistant to arrest Jun-tae before the police find him. Moving on to Hyun-do's residence, Young-sin, who was having a party, seemed to be playing the piano in front of all the invited guests. Her piano playing shows her anxiety because before the party started, Young-sin had met Jun-tae, who came home with bloody hands. Surprisingly, she didn't ask what he had done and immediately helped him clean up the traces of blood on his hand before finally asking him to stay hidden until her party was over. Seung Cheon returned to Hyun-do's residence to find Jun-tae in his room. Unfortunately, Jun-tae, who knows of Seung Cheon's arrival, immediately hides behind a curtain so that Seung Cheon cannot find him. After Seung Cheon leaves, Jun-tae heads to Hyun-do's study to kill him. When he entered the room, Seung Cheon had been waiting for him and immediately attacked him. However, with Jun-tae's martial arts skills, Seung Cheon is cornered. Luckily, he is saved by Hyun-do, who enters the room and immediately points a gun at Jun-tae. Seung Cheon then tries to call the police to arrest Jun-tae, but Hyun-do blocks him and orders his men to take Seung Cheon out of the room. In the room, Hyun-do has no plans of turning Jun-tae over to the police because that would make Dosan Group stock plummet because of the media coverage. Hyun-do is also grateful that Jun-tae killed Lee Chol, who was a hindrance to his goals, and promises to help him to be acquitted of the murder charge. However, Jun-tae doesn't trust Hyun-do, so he points his gun at Hyun-do. Calmly, Hyun-do asks Jun-tae to do this, but his words actually make Jun-tae discourage him. Then he tells Jun-tae that Young-sin is his real mother, not his older sister. Jun-tae, who is very surprised and disappointed with Young-sin, walks out of the room to where she is. All the guests then wondered why Jun-tae, reportedly in prison, was at home. Then he points his gun at Young-sin and asks if he is really her son. The invited guests who saw this were immediately frightened and ran out of the room. Young-sin, who was afraid, finally admitted this, which made Jun-tae feel betrayed, so he chose to die. The next day, Lee Chol's funeral was held, and it was seen that An Moon had come to pay his respects to the late Lee Chol. Not long after, Seung Cheon came there with Joo Hee. Although initially, Seung Cheon's sister blames Seung Cheon for her father's death, Seung Hee finally allows him to pay his respects. In front of his late father, Seung Cheon paid his respects and regretted all his mistakes because of his greed to gain wealth which cost his father's life. At night, Seung Cheon intends to return Taeyong's gold spoon, so he calls Taeyong to meet by the lake. The next day, they meet, and Seung Cheon hands Taeyong his golden spoon while apologizing for making his life a mess. Suddenly, Taeyong asks if Seung Cheon wants to return to his old life. Seung Cheon, who feels guilty for his father's death, only replies that he doesn't have the right to choose and leaves the decision to Taeyong. Then Taeyong returned Seung Cheon's gold spoon to Lee Chol's room and said that his decision was still the same as before, to remain as Lee Seung Cheon. Then he tells Seung Cheon that he has found his real father named Johan, who died 20 years ago. Some time has passed, and Seung Cheon is now trying to become a better person after his father's death. He is seen to be solving all the problems in the company so that the stock value that previously dropped has finally started to rise again. Small shareholders, like their friends, were also happy after seeing the increase in the share price of Dosan Group companies. Seung Cheon then visits to see Alex Boo, who always helps him, and invites Hyun-do to have lunch at a convenience store, which surprises Hyun-do with the change in his son's attitude. Seung Cheon explains that now he wants to be a better person and put his family first. Hearing his explanation, Hyun-do asks Seung Cheon to return to his old self because his current personality will only prevent him from becoming a successful businessman. After meeting Seung Cheon, Hyun-do now plans to make his personality return to the way he was before. At night, Joo Hee is seen accompanying Seung Cheon, who is still working on some company files. Then she shares her suspicions with Hyun-do regarding the deaths of Jun-tae and her father because Hyun-do, with his power, could falsify the incident. Seung Cheon then immediately calls Moon-ki to ask about the progress of the investigation into Song-guk's death. Moon-ki, who had come into the room, reported that he had not found any clues. However, he provides information that Johan, who died, was actually found by Hyun-do. Not long after, Seung Cheon calls Taeyong and asks to meet immediately to tell the news. On a quiet street, Taeyong, walking towards his meeting place with Seung Cheon, was followed by several mysterious men who attacked him. Luckily, Seung Cheon saw what happened, so he and Moon-ki immediately helped Taeyong to catch the men. Unfortunately, some of these men managed to escape. Moon-ki then explained that the mysterious man had been trained and that someone might want to kidnap Taeyong. After a moment's thought, Seung Cheon suspects Hyun-do, and he also begins to realize that Hyun-do, who was previously Johan, has swapped fortunes with the real Hyun-do with a golden spoon. Finally, Seung Cheon decides to find the truth and asks Joo Hee to look after Taeyong. Not long after, Seung Cheon goes to his office and tries to find evidence on Hyun-do's desk as a weapon against Hyun-do, who has hurt the people he loves. Shortly after, Seung Cheon and Moon-ki head to an empty building to meet Hyun-do, who has been waiting for them. When meeting Hyun-do, Seung Cheon calls him by the name Kwon Johan, his real identity. Likewise, Hyun-do called Seung Cheon by his real name because, from the start, Hyun-do knew that he had exchanged fortunes with Taeyong. Then he asks why Hyun-do uses a gold spoon, even though without one, Hyun-do was born into a rich family. Hyun-do explains that money is a god that can change everything, so he wants to get to the highest position to earn more. In fact, he will eliminate anyone who stands in his way, including Song-guk, Joo Hee's father. Hearing Hyun-do's madness, Seung Cheon says he is a monster. However, he says that Seung Cheon is also a monster like himself, and then he tries to persuade Seung Cheon to become his successor. Hearing that, Seung Cheon refuses because he has reported all of Hyun-do's crimes. Suddenly, a group from the prosecutor's office comes to catch Seung Cheon, who turns out to have been framed by Hyun-do and bestows all of his blame on Seung Cheon. Luckily, Seung Cheon finally managed to escape from there. At Joo Hee's office, she is surprised to see a news broadcast that Seung Cheon has become a suspect in her father's murder case. Meanwhile, Taeyong seemed to return his gold spoon and ask the old woman selling antiques to return his money. Moments later, Taeyong gets a call from Yo-jin informing him about Seung Cheon's condition, who has become a suspect in Song-guk's murder. After that, Taeyong, who was angry, rushed to Hyun-do's residence. When he met Hyun-do, Taeyong expressed all the things he had felt so far, but Hyun-do blamed him and his principles, so he now ended up being a poor person. Taeyong then explains that he would rather be poor than rich by becoming a killer like Hyun-do. However, he calmly says that Taeyong can't find any evidence even though Taeyong wants to know Johan's past memories because Seung Cheon, like him, can't see the golden spoon-selling grandmother and more to switch places back with Taeyong. Taeyong then decides to leave after hearing this. Outside, he realizes that Hyun-do most likely didn't know the golden spoon's last rule because Hyun-do never saw the antique dealer's grandmother again. Not long after, Taeyong immediately contacted Seung Cheon and told him about it. On the other hand, Seung Cheon, who gets a call from him, remembers the various antiques in the Alex Bu Museum that came from Hyundai and rushes to the museum. Having been unable to contact Seung Cheon several times, Joo-hee decides to go find him. On the way, she meets Yo-jin, who looks worried about Seung Cheon's condition, so she advises Joo-hee to ask Seung Cheon to switch places back with Tae-yong. However, Joo-hee refuses because if that happens, then Tae-yong will be the victim. Meanwhile, Seung Cheon is hiding in his real home with his mother, who prepares food for him. Seung Cheon, known as Tae-yong, then asked why his mother was helping him. She replied that she believed he didn't do the things reported on television. Hearing that answer, he regrets everything he's done and wonders if he didn't change his fate. Now his father would be eating with him right now. When the dish is ready, Seung Cheon takes out Hyundai's golden spoon that he managed to grab earlier with Alex Bu's help. Then he uses the spoon to eat all of his mother's food. Soon after, he recalls all of Hyundai's memories. After eating his dinner, Seung Cheon hugs his mother and calls her mother before rushing out of there. Soon he cries as if she has a different feeling about his treatment. Seung Cheon, who now has Hyundai's memory, asks Joo-hee and Tae-yong to look for a copy of the recording in his father's files when Yo-han, who is now Hyundai, killed the real Hyundai. While unpacking her father's belongings, Senior Joo-hee calls her to the office and sees a tape showing how Yo-han killed Hyundai. Unfortunately, because the tape was related to Hyundai, the most influential businessman in Korea, no one dared turn it over to the police. Meanwhile, Seung Cheon finally gets into Hyundai's residence with Moon-ki's help. Not long after, Hyundai is surprised to see Seung Cheon enjoying a cup of tea. However, he looks calm to see Seung Cheon there until he gets news that all the secret money he has in the Swiss bank has been donated to the penitentiary. He wonders how Seung Cheon could do this since no one knows about the secret. Seung Cheon then explains that Hyundai has forgotten the golden spoon rule not to be used by others because when someone else uses his gold spoon, all of his memories of being Yo-han will be known. At that time, Seung Cheon had no intention of killing Hyundai because, in his memory, he had once been proud of Seung Cheon's achievements, so Seung Cheon only asked him to atone for all his sins in prison. Finally, Hyundai admits that he is indeed proud of Seung Cheon and hopes that if Seung Cheon is his son, he will continue the success of the Dosan Group company. Hearing his explanation, Seung Cheon looks off guard, and Hyundai takes the opportunity to attack him. On the other hand, Yo-jin, who already knows about the footage of Hyundai's murder, decides to upload the video on social media so that it becomes the talk of many people. Moving on to Hyundai's residence, Seung Cheon is now starting to run out of breath because of Hyundai's attack, so he looks weak and faints. However, he suddenly regains consciousness and hits Hyundai with a display until Hyundai's head bleeds. Tae-yong, who came there, tried to stop Seung Cheon, who looked angry and was about to kill Hyundai. When Hyundai regains consciousness, he grabs a vase and slams it on Tae-yong's head before he finally tries to escape through the back door. Hyundai then meets Yong-sin, who turns out to have teamed up with Seung Cheon to put him in prison after she calls the police at home and arrests him. Meanwhile, Seung Cheon decides to turn himself in on charges of murder and embezzlement of Dosan Group company funds. A few days later, Seung Cheon is released because Moon-ki managed to find evidence of his innocence, including the iron that Hyundai used to kill Song-guk. Joo-hee, who knows that Seung Cheon is free, is happy and immediately meets him. In the interrogation room, Hyundai orders his personal assistant to kill Seung Cheon, and one of the servants at his residence is seen mixing poison into Seung Cheon's drink. Arriving home, Seung Cheon rushes into his room to retrieve his gold spoon and notices a glass of juice on the table that has previously been laced with poison. Not long after, Yong-sin screams after she enters Seung Cheon's room. Outside the house, Joo-hee is shocked when an ambulance suddenly arrives, and everyone looks panicked. Finally, she ran into the house until she didn't realize she had hit a man. While in front of Seung Cheon's room, Joo-hee gets the news that the Dosan Group's only son has died and makes her cry hysterically when she sees a man's corpse being taken into an ambulance. 3 years have passed, and now Tae-yong has become a famous comic artist who writes stories about golden spoons. Seung Cheon's mother and older sister are also seen living in an apartment with Moon-ki, who is now Seung-ah's husband. Back to Joo-hee, she is now with Tae-yong at a restaurant where Suk-ja works. Suk-ja, seeing Joo-hee and Tae-yong's closeness, asks them to date, but Joo-hee refuses because she considers him as her best friend. While eating, Tae-yong expresses his desire to meet the grandmother who sells antiques to stop selling gold spoons because the gold spoon cost Seung Cheon's father's life. Meanwhile, Yo-jin is married to Jong-gun and has a child. At the prison, Hyundai, who is in a wheelchair, walks out after having his sentence suspended. By this time, he cannot move his body after Yong-sin secretly gives him medicine while in prison. Yong-sin reveals that she did this to avenge Hyundai for killing Jun-tae and her husband, Yo-han. Hearing this, Hyundai, who is Yo-han, is surprised to discover that Jun-tae is his son. Turning to Joo-hee, trying to meet Mr. Han, a gardener that Joo-hee will interview. Upon reaching there, a man tells her to find Mr. Han on the beach resting. Then she goes to the beach, and later, she meets Mr. Han, who turns out to be Seung Cheon. However, Seung Cheon, who has now become Mr. Han, can't remember his past, and neither can Joo-hee, who knows him as Mr. Han. As it turned out, during the death of the Dosan group's only son 3 years ago, Seung Cheon seemed to have discouraged himself from drinking the drink. At the same time, Mr. Han was using his golden spoon to swap his life with Seung Cheon. Mr. Han, who has become Seung Cheon, enters the room and drinks the poison juice, killing him. While Seung Cheon, as Mr. Han, looks away from there and does not recognize Joo-hee, who had bumped into him. At the beach, Seung Cheon, who has been living as Mr. Han, said that he always wants to be recognized by the people he loves, even if his appearance and name differ. Hearing those words, Joo-hee remembered Seung Cheon, who had said the same thing. Although they don't recognize each other, they seem to enjoy their time together that afternoon at the beach. The series' end shows an old woman selling antiques and returning to selling gold spoons. The moral message we can learn from this series is that being grateful is very important in living life.